Get that pen back, right?
Okay, planning board, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. Go for it.
Very good. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Town of East Hampton Planning Board meeting for October 4th, 2023. We have a public hearing on, as well as 5 minutes on the work session, and then a couple of approvals in our regular meeting. So, without further ado, let's start with the Garder's Marina site plan public hearing. Randy, do you need the notice? Do you have it?
Let's see. Yeah. Take notice that a public hearing will be held before the East Hampton Town Planning Board at Town Hall 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, on Wednesday, October 4th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider the application of Garder's Marina site plan to demolish an existing 600 square foot clubhouse, construct a new 2,392 square foot clubhouse, a 600 square foot storage building, enlarge the boat basin by 4,150 square feet with new floating catwalk and finger piers, conduct dredging adjacent to the bulkhead, and to reconstruct and increase the elevation by 18 feet of linear feet of bulkhead on a parcel of land containing tidal wetlands and surface waters. The property contains 237,677.9 square feet, or 5.456 acres, and is located on the north side of 3 Mile Harbor Hog Creek Highway, East Hampton, and is situated in a waterfront Harbor Protection Overlay District, HPOD, as shown on the official zoning map of the town of East Hampton, and is identified on the Suffolk County tax map as parcel 39318. Subject application is classified as an unlisted action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, Part 617 of the New York Code of Rules and Regulations, and Chapter 128, Environmental Quality Review of the Town Code. The set of plans by D.B. Bennett, P.E.P.C., including site plan SB1 dated revised March 16, 2023, outside lighting, parking count, and groundwater separation, SP3, dated revised December 15, 2022, basement plan A100, dated August 19th, 2022, elevations north and south A201, and elevations east and west A202, dated August 19th, 2022. Existing lighting plan, elevation EL-100, dated August 19th, 2022, and landscaping plan L100, dated revised March 16th, 2023, are available for inspection at the Planning Board offices, 300 Panago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York. The public hearing will be held live and in person by the Planning Board and will be available electronically by video and teleconferencing, and will be televised on local TV, LTV Channel 22, and available for live stream on the LTV website, https://www.ltveh.org. The public shall be permitted to appear in person, but may also provide comments on the matter being heard by calling 351-888-6331. Any person or party wishing to be heard with respect to the foregoing may do so in person or by agent or by attorney or by call-in to the live stream or by written comment addressed to the Planning Board, 300 Panago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York, 11937. Comments may also be submitted to the Planning Board by email to planningboard@ehamptony.gov. All comments must be received by the planning board by the date and time of the public hearing. Dated September 13th, 2023, Chairman Samuel Kramer.
Thank you. Good way to start the meeting. Now you can take it easy. Nancy, do we have jurisdiction?
Yes, we do. I reviewed the affidavit of service and posting, and it does appear that it was properly noticed, and you therefore have jurisdiction.
Great, thank you. Tina, a little background for us?
So I have the aerial image up showing the location of the property. It's highlighted, located on the southern portion of Harbor. Show site plan. Okay. I think the project description, Randy read, pretty much covered it. It's to demolish an existing clubhouse and build a new, larger two-story clubhouse, storage building, enlarge the boat basin, conduct dredging, into the bulkhead, and increase the elevation of the bulkhead by 18 inches for a distance of 575 linear feet. The parcel contains tidal wetlands and surface water resources. And DEPRA has resulted in the issuance of a negative declaration.
Are there any members of the public present tonight who'd like to be heard to this application? Okay, Matt, do we have anybody in queue who wishes to be heard on this public hearing?
You have 0 calls on the line. Thank you.
Randy? Thought you were off the hook, but you're not.
Make a motion to close the hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing is closed, 7-0. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. We're going to go on now to the work session. The first matter on is going to be the Ross School athletic fence. Sharon, you've got that. Tina is the applicant. You're here for that? Very well. So first we'll hear from the planning department, then we'll hear from the applicant if he wants to speak, and then we'll have a discussion.
Thank you. This is the application for the Ross School athletic fence. The site is located on 20 Good Friend Drive. Zooming out, here it is. Highlighted here. Since the last planning board review on August 23rd, the applicant was requested to submit a new survey showing the proposed location of the fence. At the last work session, it was revealed that they decided to relocate the fence to be not adjacent to the edge of the clearing that I'm circling with my cursor, but within the wooded area on site to screen the fence from view. With that, the planning department recommends that the application is complete, and the planning board should discuss if they feel this is ready for approval for the ARB to review the fence, which is in their jurisdiction. Thank you.
Very good. Does the applicant wish to be heard?
I have nothing to say unless you have any questions.
Very good. Thank you very much. Sharon, this is yours.
Yeah, no, I think that was an improvement, moving the fence. There is a comment here about, a setback. I wasn't sure if that was something that had been sort of rectified. The fence is 50 feet away from the street, and I don't know if they're going to do that or not, or if it is.
So it appears that it complies, but we just want the setbacks labeled for ARB, and this is something that they will check during their review. So,
okay, so it does
the board's
comply.
decision is conditioned on their approval, and this will be addressed.
Okay. So yeah, I'm okay with this fence.
Ready to go? Okay, does anybody have any other comments on this? Do we all agree that the application is ready for approval?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, the application's ready.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next is the Franzetti subdivision waiver application. Is the applicant here on that? Is that yours? And Ian, that's going to be yours. And Tina.
This is the Franzetti Subdivision Waiver application. At the last board meeting, the action item was that the applicant was going to go and conduct the Phase 1B testing. They had submitted the Phase 1B protocol to the planning board. We had reviewed it and agreed it was appropriate. The testing has been conducted, and the professional archaeologist who supervised the work and submitted the report has reported they found nothing based on the Phase 1B protocol, nothing that would be sensitive archaeologically. After reviewing the report, the planning department sees nothing to disagree with that. And recognizing that, we recommend that this no further archaeological work is required and that the subdivision review can continue from here. Moving to the subdivision map, one of the things that the board has discussed in prior, the subdivision map. One of the things that the board has discussed in prior meetings is that there is a sizable lot area variance that is going to be needed. And I will just show very quickly. This parcel is split zoned. So the northern portion of it is within the A zoning district and the southern portion is in the B zoning district. The A zoning district has a 40,000 square foot minimum lot area, and the B has a 20,000 square foot minimum lot area. The next step is really for the applicant to go and get their approval from, or submit for their approval from the zoning board. But the last thing that we suggest the planning board consider is whether they think it's appropriate to request the applicant to try to minimize the size of the lot area variance requested. And just when you look at the survey, you can see that the lot 2 that's going to be in the B residence district, excuse me, it's going to be 25,000 square feet. That's 5,000 square feet or so above the minimum required, whereas the lot in the A district is 28 and change. That's 12,000 or so less than the minimum lot area required there. Our last thought on this is that if there should be efforts made to reduce the nonconformity of the northern lot by making the newly created lot smaller. One of the variance standards for ZBA that they'll consider is the minimum variance being requested. So, that will be subject to their discussion, and we thought the planning board might want to consider that. And the applicant should consider whether or not that still meets their objectives and if they see that it's not feasible. Aside from that, we think this is ready to go to CBA for consideration.
Great, very good. Soil?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Richard Whalen from Whalen Filer PLLC, on behalf of the applicant, who's Nora Franzetti. So Ms. Franzetti is a year-round, longtime resident of Montauk. One of her 2 daughters lives in Montauk, works at the dock restaurant. Her husband works for the Viking Fleet. They have 2 kids, and they have to share the existing house with Nora. So the objective here is very straightforward. The Franzettis would like to be able to divide the property back into 2 lots, which is what it was when Nora first acquired it. Nora acquired these 2 lots at different times, and the late 1990s, for reasons I still don't really understand, she and her ex-husband put them in the same name. So she basically merged them on her own in the 1990s. Before then, they had 2 different derivations. The southern lot was in a filed subdivision map, and then the northern lot was described property. So they kind of created the situation that they're in. The question was, what are the applicant's objectives? The applicant's objective is very straightforward: to be able to build another house on the property so that 2 generations of the Franzetti family can live in separate homes. So if that could be done in another way, we would be open to it. However, I don't see that there's much merit in the planning department's recommendation to put make part of lot 1 extend to the B residence area. What you have right now is the proposed lot 1. That's the lot that needs the variance. is at over 70% of the required zoning area for Lot 1. There was some discussion the last time this was before the planning board about the magnitude of the variance. It's really a zoning board question, but I would respectfully say that it's not a very great variance. The lot needing the variance is over 70% of the required minimum. The adjoining lot, which would be recreated as it was in the filed subdivision map, would be 121% of its required minimum. So you've got about 5,000 square feet. Yeah, you could put that 5,000 square feet on lot 1 by gerrymandering the lot, and I guess, you know, it's not shown up there, but you could gerrymander the lot and put that in the back of lot 2 behind the house. But it wouldn't be usable. It wouldn't be relatively straight boundaries, which is what you usually prefer. And finally, that area is going to be in a B zone. Do we get to count that towards the A zone lot? Who knows? The zoning code really doesn't, zoning code does not deal well with properties that are bisected by a zoning boundary. It doesn't really give you any direction. So I think the relevant data is this. The property together is over 53,000 square feet. If you have a minimum required A zone lot, that's 40,000 square feet. Minimum required B zone lot is 20,000 square feet. We're at 89.5% of the required minimum to combine them. We all know what the situation in the town is with housing. I told you where, you know, Nora's daughter and husband, son-in-law work. They can't buy or build a house in Montauk under the current economic conditions. They'll never be able to do that. The only way they'd be able to do something is if they can get a lot from Nora that they can then build on. So the town's motto for 2023 was affordable housing, all hands on deck. That's the pitch that we will make to the Zoning Board of Appeals. There is precedent for it. They've done stuff like this before, granted variances before, of a greater magnitude than we're asking for today. That's, you know, really what I have to tell you. So regarding the archaeological investigation, I was actually on the property for, I think, the better part of 2 hours that day. Chief Robert Farrow from the Matoka tribe was there present too. They didn't find, you know, they obviously, as indicated in the Richard Grubb report, there were no indications of burials extending onto this property from the talk house, I guess, burial ground.
Very good. Yeah, go ahead.
Question, did you have a chance to look into the detached single-family section of the code?
I haven't. I think the code was just amended on that, I believe.
Yes.
I think they just elected within the last month, and I haven't really looked at it in much detail. This project goes back to 2018. It goes back about 5 years now. The application was submitted almost 2 years ago to both this board and the zoning board. But it goes back to 2018 when Nora originally hired an outfit from Stony Brook to do ground penetrating radar, to do kind of the same verification that Richard Grubb and Associates did. And the ground penetrating radar thing it turned out they couldn't reach anything conclusive, but she paid for that. And, you know, given that we've been at it for this period of time, they realize they want to go, you know, what they want to try to get a lot that they can build their own house on.
I mean, they could build a house.
Yeah, they could.
It's likely that, it's likely that if there's two separate lots here, they'll go into the private second home market.
Someday. Such has been the case. There have been other variances granted, one next to East Hampton High School. I believe that property today is still owned, is it the Card family?
Cullum,
that's right. And I actually checked that. I hadn't checked in the last few months. Cullum family still owns both lots. So they can stay in separate ownership for a long time. Nora's not going anywhere, and obviously her daughter's not going to go anywhere, so.
Okay, great. It's yours.
Yeah, I think that, you know, the archaeology was a big issue here. It sounds like that's resolved. I think this is really a ZBA matter. As far as where the line is drawn, you know, you're saying historically it was here, makes sense to have a clean break. Look, I think if you look at the surrounding properties, you know, the story is compelling, although that's not really how we make our determinations. But you look at the surrounding properties, it all makes sense from a planning standpoint, but it doesn't meet our code. And so you need the code to be relaxed. You go to the ZBA. I think you can make all the same arguments to them. And if you get the variance, I have no problem with this configuration at all. I would stop short of giving them comments saying they ought to do this, because the code is the code. You want an exception. They should use their standards. And so, you know, I'm ambivalent. Personally, makes sense. I hope it works. works out, but I think it's a ZBA matter.
I was getting ZBA deja vu, if that's such a thing. Felt like this is, I agree with Ian, it's really, there's the only, to me, the only real issue for the planning board is the archaeological discussion, and that seems to be resolved. Also, I guess the configuration of the lot, I don't have any issue with it. Anybody?
Nothing further.
No? Randy? Anybody? Michael? No.
Okay.
No? Very good.
So the next step would be the planning department would refer this to the zoning board and
The next
schedule
is I
it.
ask the questions.
And
Oh, yeah, okay, very good.
could we agree that, of crafting a letter saying that, you know, we've seen the application? I just don't want our comments to be misconstrued. I know I've heard, you know, I don't want to give a really strong positive or negative because I just feel like they should use their standards.
Agree with that.
So we just want to say that the New York town law says that on a lot area variance application, the planning board has the right to give comments to the zoning board on matters of planning concerns that planning board sees. You're not obligated to send them a letter. You can do absolutely nothing. Just
Well,
wanna make
historically, I
sure.
know they want to know if we have very strong feelings one way or the other so that our thoughts aren't misconstrued. I think I've been annoying to people and saying, we've seen the application, let us know what you think. But truthfully, I do think that's the proper way to handle it. I just wonder if we shouldn't send them very simple. I think we should almost have a form letter that basically says, use your standards. We can work with it either way.
They can see from, you know, this discussion, if they care to look, that we're not taking any, you know, position beyond that. Well, we'll do the questions right now. Does the board find the general layout acceptable?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so you got that. Does the board wish to send comments to the ZBA? Brooks?
I agree with Ian. If he's agreeable to sending a letter saying that we're, what was that last, how did you put it, that we're okay either way? We're okay with
Our
whatever.
discretion.
Yeah,
So we're basically saying, no, we're not really going to request alternative lot size considerations. We're just going to stay agnostic.
No, but the ZBA said to get this variance, you know, the line has to be here.
Then
Okay,
accept it,
you know,
yeah, that's what I'm saying, except in this question, we're not going to make an opinion.
No. Well,
but we're good either way.
Yeah.
agnostic, I don't want to say agnostic, that'd be the wrong word, but I just did. Yeah, there you go, on the record. Okay, so we're all good with that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that the ZBA considers the affordable housing amendment that allows a second detached single-family home on one lot as an alternative.
That's 600 square feet.
Yeah, it's small.
Not sure about that.
Well, they tried to make it 800, but I think it failed and they kept it at 600.
It's pretty small.
So 600 square feet is not really, with a family with 2 kids,
Yeah.
that's kind of tight.
No, but that's for the ZBA
That's
to think about if they want to. Will the board require an archaeological study be conducted on the property? None?
These are the old questions.
Those are the old ones, I think.
Am I looking at them? Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, that's the old one, just those 2 questions. It was from
Okay,
the old,
No, they're both packages, yes.
yeah, they are. Oh.
the old one is attached, so
Yes,
that's what
it
it
is.
is.
I apologize to the applicant.
Oh,
Does
yes,
the board
sorry.
find, we're good?
Yeah, sorry.
Does the board find, thank you, that the provided Phase 1B archaeological survey letter report acceptable?
Yes.
There you are. Does the board wish to request alternative lot sizes be considered prior to sending this to the ZBA?
No.
No. There you go. Those 2 questions. Thank you very much. Okay. Next is the Landing Art Studio. And we have, Ed, this is yours. Okay. Tina, go on. First, the way it works is, first we'll hear, it's okay. First we'll hear from the planning department. They'll give us the background. Then you'll be free to give us whatever comments you'd like to give us. And then Ed will lead our discussion.
Thank you. This is the application for the Landing Art Studio. It was last reviewed by the board on June 21st, 2023. The application is to construct an artist studio on Old House Landing Road in East Hampton. The parcel shown on the screen is approximately 0.78 acres. It's located in the Harbor Protection Overlay District as well. After the last meeting, the planning board issued several comments to the applicant, all of which have been addressed in the most recent submission, and I'll go through those quickly. The applicant has submitted the remaining documentation to complete the record on their status as a professional artist. That's acceptable, we recommend. The proposed structure is appropriately cited with respect to pyramid law compliance, there'll be no issues there. The applicant submitted floor plans regarding no plumbing facilities. He included in the studio, aside from the sink, which is permitted. The only thing on this is that we'll just have to have as a condition of approval that the sink needs to discharge to one of the approved types of locations in the code. Regarding the clearing, there was, this was kind of the biggest change at the last meeting. The board had requested that the applicant relocate the studio to an already cleared location on the site, and they have done so. So this is already cleared area, and that is where the studio is now. It's moved from this area, which is wooded. The applicant also submitted a letter from the Natural Resources Department confirming that the existing clearing on the site is permitted for code, pre-existing non-conforming, so there's no issues with revegetation. The applicant's proposed size is compliant, setbacks are compliant. The last remaining thing is that we will need a Schedule A attachment for the covenants and restrictions. That's gonna have to be approved before we can final approve those CNRs. So therefore, in conclusion, if the planning board agrees that the applicant, well, the planning board already agreed that the applicant was a professional artist. The last thing to agree on is whether or not the new studio location is okay. And if so, we recommend the application is complete and ready for public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tina. Does the applicant wish to be heard regarding the report? Okay. It's just fine. Ed?
Okay, yeah, I think this is pretty clean, actually. I've been to the property. It seems like it's going to be, quite discreet in the new location in particular. There are no revegetation issues, which we thought that there might be kind of initially. I think the Schedule A completion is really the only hangup as far as I see. So I think we're ready to go to public hearing on this.
Very good. So we all agree that the new studio location is acceptable?
Yeah.
Everyone? Okay. And do we all agree that the application is ready to be scheduled for a public hearing?
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
I see, Tina, in here, you're saying that the sink can be connected to an approved sanitary system, a leaching field, or a catch basin. And I don't know if I've seen that before.
That is from the code,
It is.
yes.
What it does is all of the, if we don't say they shall be connected to approved sanitary system, then the health department's separation from the sanitary and the well, in other words, you could have a dry well right next to the well. You could have a catch basin right next to the well. So my thought is it's better, safer to have a sink in all of these applications hooked into an existing sanitary system and not just go into a dry well. It's basically a cesspool.
I believe it's going into the existing system that we have
Okay,
now.
so maybe we could just,
I know it's getting trenched and
okay,
connected to that.
well then there's no problem, but
Going down the road in the future, you're right, though. I mean, almost every artist studio application we've heard about, they have a sink, and they, maybe it might be a good idea for the code to put that on the list of things we'd like to tinker with the code.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's a good point.
But in this particular case, it's covered.
Yeah.
All right, so very good. So what will happen next is there'll be a resolution. Actually,
I think it's here.
there is a resolution.
Let's do the resolution.
Let's do the
Shall we do that?
resolution.
All right. In the matter of the application of a landing artist studio Suffolk County Tax Map 300-56-2-27. Public hearings to be scheduled here at Town Hall on Wednesday, November 1st at 6:30 PM or soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard to consider this application. I read this notice of scheduling of a public hearing and call for its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Pass 7-0. So what you should do now,
Yeah.
go to the planning department, and do you have the posters?
Jody, do you have them?
Yes.
Okay, you're gonna need to post,
The what?
you know, those signs
It says
that
public
say
hearing.
notice?
You should check on all the rules and make
Yeah,
sure you follow them.
there are very specific rules that have to be followed, and if you heard on the first one, after Randy read that little tiny thing about the first application, and then I said, is there jurisdiction? And council advised, yes. You don't want to ever hear council say, no, we don't have jurisdiction, okay? So that's on you, so.
You have to mail to the neighbors and you have to post the
There's a whole,
property.
but there's a whole protocol of when and how.
I don't know about talking to.
Just,
neighbors.
Just go talk to planning department. We can't do that for you here now. What I'm telling you is, go talk to the planning department,
Okay,
and they'll give you direction.
okay,
All right?
great, thank
Okay,
you.
very good. All right. Now we move on to, and before we go any further, I need to ask the applicant, how do you pronounce this name? Zorni? Sorning. Thank you. Okay.
Yep. Have a good night.
I like CSN or New York, but couldn't use that. All right. Tina, if you will.
Yes, sure. I'm still not going to do that. This is the application for 22 Soundview Drive, Thorny site plan / special permit evaluation. This is the first review of this proposal, and take some time on the overhead. You will see the aerial imagery for the location of the site. It's highlighted. This is the inlet of Lake Montauk, so it is right on the water and on the sound here. The application is for a new 281 square foot addition over an existing carport with a new 177 square foot deck. And this would be for the manager's apartment. And the other aspect of the application is to legalize a conversion to a resort use, a residential cooperative resort use that occurred in 1985. A little history on the site. Historical planning department records included in the applicant's submission, and we also found indicate that a building inspector determination from 2013 confirmed that the change in square footage associated with the manager's apartment was not an increase in a pre-existing non-conforming density, but rather a dimensional change. So we've taken that as a baseline. However, the memorandum noted at that time that the lack of a cooperative offering plan dated prior to the town's adoption of the conversion code in 1984 necessitated a special permit for the conversion associated with the application. Also in the records, we were able to confirm that there's a 1992 CO, certificate of occupancy, that indicates there's 44 units present. And the offering plan mentioned 85. However, I think it's confirmed that it's 35, right? So the applicant can confirm for us what's there now. The action is unlisted pursuant to SECRA, and the town code and environmental assessment form wasn't prepared, but should be submitted. And once accepted by the planning board, we recommend you assume lead agency for the project. Regarding the special permit required for the site, I'm just going to bring up the survey, I guess, so that we can see that for a second. There are two special permits associated with this application. There's a conversion special permit with standards, and there's also a resort special permit. First, the conversion, which is defined in the code as the changing of a use such as a resort, motel, or multiple residence to a different such use. There's specific standards for the conversion listed in the code, and they're attached to the memo. Our understanding of the present request is that the applicant wants to convert from a motel to a resort. Motel is permitted in the zone that's a resort zone that we're in, and resort is special permitted. And the conversion already has occurred, from what we understand. Based on the existence of the units per the 1992 CO, it does seem that most of the special permit standards are already met. But the board still does have some authority in the code regarding the imposition of conditions it deems reasonable to ensure that the changed nature or intensity of the use does not result in deleterious impacts to the site and surrounding properties. The planning department listed a few of these in the memo for the board's consideration, right from the code criteria for conversions. So one was the upgraded sewage and waste disposal facilities. Couldn't tell from the survey if it was a upgraded system here, but the town engineer did look at this and didn't think it was. And if there is an older system here, it may be appropriate to upgrade to an innovative alternative on-site wastewater treatment system in accordance with current regulations. And I'll talk a little bit about the density exceedance later in the memo. Enhanced buffering and screening might also be appropriate. The site right now is not well screened from Soundview Drive, and there are residential districts right to the west. And then regarding stormwater, there is a stormwater element of the conversion criteria, and we haven't seen the stormwater management facilities. We don't know what capabilities exist here. It would be appropriate that they meet town standards as part of this effort. We also did list the resort special permit standards, just to put in context the typical review for the resort. So it is supposed to be about 6 units per acre, 7,260 square feet per unit. Applying that here, there'd be about 6 units possible, but there's 35. So that's way over, not uncommon for Montauk. I want to make sure we all understand that. The average maximum number of bedrooms is not supposed to exceed 2.25 per unit in any proposal. We weren't provided information on the floor plans, so we're not sure whether or not what the conditions are here. And then there's restrictions on the maximum habitable floor area. So it would be appropriate, we think, for the applicant to provide information on the number of bedrooms and units so the board can understand if what they're being asked to approve does comply with the standards. And the board, we also noted, would have to find that this also meets the general special permit standards that are in the code, and I put the citation there. Regarding coverage, the site is, seems to be pre-existing, non-conforming over the coverage requirements. There was a small discrepancy in the plans, so the applicant can rectify that quickly. The overall observation is that if there are opportunities to reduce impervious coverage associated with this application, we recommend that that's appropriate. It's always an objective to do so. Regarding dimensional conformance, this is really with respect to the new proposed structure, which I will maybe show just some of the elevations so the board can see the carports here. Here's the new structure. You can tell that they are pyramid compliant. We did just want to check the setback, make sure that that's accurate, and the height was listed in the application as 16.3, but that appears to be the side yard setback. But here are the elevations of the new structure. And they do appear to apply dimensionally. Regarding the sanitary system that I touched on earlier, did put some context in the memo, based on the higher unit number, which I understand is too high, and a Suffolk County calculation of 225 gallons per day. This site, the population density equivalent on the site would be over 9,000 gallons. Meanwhile, 600 and some change would be required under Suffolk County regulations. So the site is way over the density that would be permitted by Suffolk County. If you looked at it today, I mean, obviously there's a grandfathered use here, but just to put it in context with modern day standards, those numbers provide some backdrop to the situation. The stormwater I touched on already, we feel that town standards should be followed. Regarding parking, site navigation and traffic, confirming the number of units would just allow us to confirm that the parking is up to code. I did include just a note about how parking is typically considered and the objective to put parking in the back. That can't happen here, but that it should be, you know, screened from view. And there, I think, are opportunities to enhance the screening. Landscaping, there was no landscaping plan submitted, but if the board feels it's appropriate, perhaps one should go forward. Lighting, there was no lighting information provided, but that may be because there's no lighting proposed, and that's a question. And if there is lighting proposed, then the standard should be followed as listed in the memo. And then other approvals and coordination we did list. It does appear that the application is outside of natural resource permit jurisdiction. Just want to make sure it's confirmed on the survey with the appropriate dimensions. ARB approval would be needed. Suffolk County Planning Commission coordination will be required due to the special permit. And the site is within the local waterfront revitalization plan, so a consistency assessment will also be required as the applicant gets closer to finalization. In conclusion, the application's incomplete pending clarification regarding the number of units, sanitary and stormwater infrastructure, and some detail regarding what's already existing with respect to the units. And should the conversion be deemed appropriate by the board, we suggest that standards and covenants and restrictions related to the items discussed in the special permit criteria are considered by the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the applicant wish to be heard?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Richard A. Hammer from Biano and Hammer. I'm representing the Sorneys, who are one of the owners of Sun and Sound Resort that's seeking site plan approval. We're doing a small addition and we're removing a portion of a carport, some other minor structures, and legalization of the conversion that occurred in 1985. I wish I could tell you 1985, I was in diapers, I wasn't born yet. It seems like yesterday to me. It was actually a very long time ago, unfortunately. The co-op conversion that occurred on this property occurred within months of the town adding in the 1984 comp plan a provision that purported to regulate conversions of properties. So, I mean, it's literally April versus December. I remember looking at it a long time ago. This isn't a new application. I believe we filed this many years ago. The Sun and Sound, most of these units are owned by members of the Sorney family or other people within the Sorneys. You know, there's some exterior units, but it was largely controlled. I think there was some reluctance on the board to, you know, proceed down this path. However, in the last year, apparently they resolved it. We're going to have an interesting discussion, and most of it, I don't expect we're going to resolve here, but as a general rule, the zoning enabling ordinance allows municipalities to regulate uses, structures, you know, zoning districts, et cetera. It doesn't generally extend to regulation of the form of property ownership. That's an interesting thing to say, but that's exactly what a conversion is. Regulations affecting a form of ownership. We own it in a corporation, we could own it in an LLC, we could own it as individuals. Now we're owning it in a cooperative corporation. The town's is purporting to regulate that, and by their code. I don't think this has been challenged in the past, and I can discuss a little bit about why that is.
I just want to ask you, is it approved? Is it an approved co-op approved by the New York Attorney General?
Yes, the offering plan 19, I actually have I think it's actually in your packet.
What I saw in the packet was a cover sheet of an application to the AG. And
yes, it was approved by the Attorney General. The offering plan was approved in April 1985, I want to say off the top of my head.
So it's been a co-op approved co-op.
Since 1985. So the argument is that this change of ownership form has no impact on the use of the property that would otherwise be regulated. Same use, same structure. Basically, you wouldn't know driving by, is this cooperative? Is it, in a different form? As a former town attorney, I've had this discussion both when I was with the legal department of the town and after. I've had it many times with John Joe Nicky in the past, and it was always a wink and a nod. Yes, we will, approve the conversion subject to reasonable conditions, and that's kind of why we're here tonight. As you mentioned, cooperative form of ownership or cooperatives are regulated by the New York Attorney General's office. They approve offering plans. It's a form of not-for-profit corporation that's regulated by, I think it's the Charities Department, and there are law firms that's all they do is set up POAs and property owner associations and cooperatives. But I don't really feel like filing legal briefs on this issue or retaining counsel. And, there's a really good counsel sitting behind me, actually, who would probably be somebody we could speak to. There have been a lot of conversions that have been approved after the fact. As a matter of fact, I believe the property next door, Soundview, was approved 2 years ago? By my office, we submitted the plan and got that approved.
Is that 40 years after the AG gave it its approval?
I think it was actually done sometime in the 90s, would be my guess. So, yeah, there was a lot of these conversions that occurred that were not regulated. But I would say there's no change of use on the site. The COs, let's talk about the COs. There's clearly some errors in the town COs. Even if you do simple math, I have an abacus in my car I could bring in to help us. But if you follow the unit count on these things, at one point it was, I think it's 35 as I understood it all along. The 1992 CO is wrong. It shows 44. I don't know where those 44 units came from, but the prior CO that was issued in 85, I think, is 34 units and a manager's cottage that was added, not 44. So, that's one of the explanations is maybe they just added them up wrong or whatever, and nobody has actually looked at it in a while. I received floor plans of the units today. I'll submit those for the board. Didn't have them in time. I just got them from it. One of the questions that's raised is, the use. And this is an important use. In 1984, this building was not a motel. And the reason it was not a motel is because the town adopted a definition of motel that conforms to the way it is today. Under our code, this is a crazy thing, and you try and wrap your head around this. There are three things. There's a motel, a resort, and a transient motel. Motels, as I understand, there probably aren't any that exist in the town, strictly under the definition of motel unit and whatnot. However, those definitions didn't apply in 1961, which is when this units first started being built and it was deemed a motel. So in 1984, the definitions changed. What we actually are is a resort today as defined in our code. We can't be a transient motel. Some of the units have kitchens, some units are larger. They have a limitation. I think it's 450 square feet. Even if you look at the floor plans and the file, that existed from 1961, we're not a transient motel. We don't fall into that. It also can't be a motel under our code because some of the units are larger than they would be allowed. Let's see. It doesn't meet the definition. Under the contract, some of the units are larger than permitted and contain kitchens. So you're not a motel. What are you? You're a resort. So we're a resort use today, even though our CO says motel, it's actually a resort. And so the change of use from motel to resort doesn't actually exist. I think that's one of the things on the evaluation form is we are not changing the use from a motel to a resort. We're a resort and we're going to stay a resort under the code. And an existing special permit use, which a lawfully existing special permit under 255-525 has an existing special permit. It's not required to get a new special permit to maintain the use. So, that's a little bit of legal mumbo jumbo at the end of the day, but basically, this isn't that big of an ask, I guess, is where I'm coming out on this. What we're appearing for is the conversion in the form of ownership as well as the small addition. You can, I think that the health department's going to evaluate this, the way their regulations say is if you increase a resort unit, or I think it's a housing unit up to 1,200 square feet, it produces 325 gallons per day. If it goes above that, then it produces more. We're still within that. So increasing this unit by 325 square feet or whatever is not going to change our sanitary calculations because we're within that square foot range. The bigger issue, is the resort use. The memo actually also questions how building coverage is decreasing. Slight changes were made to it. I think the carport is actually being pulled back by 25 square feet, and it is on the survey. We'll just make sure that we clarify that. So we gain 25 square feet of lose 25 square feet of building coverage, although the total lot coverage remains the same. And we get a little more conforming because I believe the portion of the carport that's being pulled off doesn't conform to the setback, but this will. The sanitary is a big issue. Under the sanitary code, we are in fact required to apply to the health department, and we're happy to do that. As I mentioned, I don't think it's going to trigger any sanitary review on this. However, replacing the sanitary system on this, and I'm just going on my own personal experience, some of the sanitary replacements or upgrades that I've done out here we're in the neighborhood for this type of flow, somewhere around $850,000 to $950,000. I mean, it might be $1 million sanitary system. The commercial systems are very different than residential sanitary systems. It's a whole different animal, basically, in terms of the leaching area and the types of systems that we can do here. As we're grandfathered in at the existing sanitary calculations, we're happy to apply to the health department and have them say, yes, your expansion doesn't trigger any sanitary work, or if they say we have to upgrade, we will then have an important consideration. Well, should we abandon the 200? And, it's not worth it for 240 square feet to incur about $1 million thing. It just couldn't be absorbed by the owners of this cooperative. I do believe that we would certainly consider upgrading the lighting plan. We're working on those plans to install compliant fixtures. I believe that was done at the neighboring property, Sun and Sound, back, that was one of the things that we were able to offer. With respect to wetland jurisdiction, we can confirm these are more than 206 feet from the wetlands. We're going to be out of wetland jurisdiction, and we'll be able to document that and make sure that that makes it in the next edition. Screening. I'm willing to discuss screening if the board would suggest it, but this place has been here since 1961. It long predates any of the residential development. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the aerial photo, most of the actual neighbors here, is there a way you can pull up the zoomed up?
Can you also move there? That was a big block.
The box that makes it impossible to see anything. Yes, that's probably.
Here, this is it.
There you go, perfect. Well,
right, this is the.
Yes, that's correct. So if you look directly across the street, there's two motels or hotel or resorts. I'm not even sure what
South, you mean? South? It goes south?
Yes, to the south. So the residential lots are on the other side. And as a matter of fact, there's lots along those. I think we predate those, actually. I believe those were built sometime in 1978. And then there were some other residential properties that were developed more recently across the street and down the road. I think if you start installing screening, you might find out you're blocking some water views. You're going to be changing the aesthetic of the site. I personally think that these resorts are kind of the fabric of Soundview. They predate most of the development in the area. It's been here longer than I have, basically. But if you feel it strongly that you would like us to consider screening along at least the western boundary, we could try and do it. I'm looking at the survey and I don't really see any easy place to put it in. This is a fairly constrained lot in that regard. But I do think you have the potential for causing more harm than good in terms of screening it with, the adjacent residents. You don't know what their view shed is or if they support it. If you'd like, I'll approach them and ask. My initial assessment is that it kind of seems unnecessary just based on the fact that this resort has been there for so long. It appears the same way it does and predates probably when they built those houses. I think the applicants are certainly willing to work with the board to move this forward, but I think there are limits to what we're able to do and what the town's able to require us to do. In terms of the actual nuts and bolts of the application, Tara is here with me, and she probably is more qualified to answer some of them than I am. But that's my presentation for lack of a better term. So any questions you have, I'm certainly happy to get Tara up here to answer.
I have questions. It's your application, right?
Yes, it is.
So lead us.
So it's doing business as a cooperative right now. People can buy a unit or sell a unit.
You can buy share. A cooperative is a form of ownership in which you do not, it's not considered real estate in New York. It's a form of real estate, but what you're buying is shares of a cooperative so you buy into the ownership of the cooperative that owns the entirety of the site.
But not a timeshare.
Not a timeshare, no.
2 weeks. So I go on your website, and I can rent 3 nights of a room.
Yes.
Is that a hotel? Is that a hotel motel, or is that just me renting from an owner of a cooperative?
You would probably be renting a unit. A cooperative comes with proprietary shares and a proprietary lease. So your lease is that unit. So I would imagine that when you do that, you are leasing that unit through the cooperative, and the cooperative has some form of remuneration, but you're actually getting it from the owner who is not there that week or that.
Okay. There's a lot in here. I'm fine with an addition. I'm fine with it being a resort, because 35 units as a motel, 35 units as a resort, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It seems pretty straightforward to me. As you mentioned, the IA system is a real sticking point for me, and I look at, and I think it informs me to look at what could have been built if we built it today with 6 units or 7 or something, a factor of 6 less that we have right here. So I would like to see what Suffolk County Health says about this. Okay. You were going to approach them.
Yes.
But I would really want to see, do you know what is there now? Do you know what's there now? I imagine it's not an IA system.
It certainly isn't. IA systems didn't exist in 1961, 1992,
So it's been a lot older than me.
I don't actually know the sanitary details on the site. There are, you can see some of the leaching fields that are identified on the surveys. So I imagine it's a traditional septic system that has a leach field and a septic tank.
But you don't know when it was last cleaned up or checked, or?
We intend on bringing that information to the board.
All right. Because it might be time.
Well, and I do think, I agree with you. I would love for everybody to upgrade to an IA system or have a public sewer system would be even better, but that's another story altogether. However, there are grants available to this company that through the commercial, through the town and Suffolk County, and those are things that we would certainly pursue. But in terms of incurring the actual cost, we're not building this new, and it is substantial. I'd actually like to ask one of our engineers, how much do you think it would cost? But I'm going to say it's probably in the neighborhood of $800 to $1 million for a cent.
Just one more thing about the units, because again, I looked online and I visited before the meeting. I went there, and they look kind of small. Right. So I wonder, is there any plan to, someone buys a unit and puts a door and kind of suddenly you have 34 units there? Has that occurred in the past, or is there any?
I don't believe so, but I would kind of view that as a good change at the end of the day. You're reducing the density. As a matter of fact, I just ran into one of the cooperatives in Amagansett that is very commonplace, where they have first and second story units that are connected. And you know what? It's a good thing from some perspective. It's allowable probably under the offering plan because, but does it revert to a lower density under our town code?
It could change a lot of your calculations, your septic calculations, your parking calculations, any number of things.
Well, I think when you combine the units, you might be exceeding the sanitary flow. It's probably 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Multiple moving parts.
Yeah, exactly. It's
In different
difficult to,
directions.
it's difficult to predict exactly how that comes out.
Yeah, if you built that today, you would be exceeding.
You wouldn't be building this.
I would say that, one argument about having it become a cooperative as opposed to operating as a traditional resort, I think it's less intensive in the use because the units are owned. There's not turnover. Most of the owners occupy these for the summer. They want them available for the weekends or whatever. So there's not a drive to rent these things.
You found one.
I wrote a whole paragraph just about that, because I imagine that you would have, if it was a motel, there'd be in and out and strange people, and I used to.
Not necessarily strange people, but there could be
Strange people with money.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's a little bit less, I live walking distance from this, and I walk that area all the time. I think it's a little more residential in character than it is commercial after, because people have the pride of ownership and there's continuity there that you don't get in a motel or typical resort.
So every unit is sold. Every unit has been, you don't operate as a quote motel for any of those units at this stage.
There's no central, other than what you see on the website, which is sort of like an Airbnb, I would guess, but no, it's not operated as a motel. I don't even know. I can find out from the owners. I can get a narrative about how this happened. My understanding is that when the offering plan was approved, the original owners of the site basically distributed these among the family members. That was kind of how they all dealt with mom and dad's house or the family business at the time.
I think it would be interesting to know currently how often the current co-op owners, shareholders, rent out the units, because it may not be a motel in so many words, but it may be operating as one if each individual owner of the units is free to, rent it out.
But our argument is that they're allowed to do that. It's that the other thing, the conversion is
different in some way.
Well, I want to know what we're going from to what we're going to.
But it sounds like our line of questioning is more comfortable with what they're asking for. And so I don't think there's any, finding out if it operates as a hotel, I don't think proves anything because you're allowed to do that.
No, but I think it's an interesting data point that, I will explore with the owners because I don't know the answer to it. There are a lot of cooperatives in the town of East Hampton. I think a lot of the ones along the stretch are cooperatives. The one in Amagansett, and then there's quite a few in Montauk. The Port Royal, I believe, is a cooperative corporation. So there are, aspects of this that you can look to other things that exist today and say, hey, what's the difference? And some of them, there might not be a discernible difference, but this one has always struck me as more family owned and occupied than the other ones that I'm familiar with. I'm done.
Anybody? Comments, questions?
It's just to say that, the use issue and definition of what it is a matter that we will get resolved. There's no question about that. But the major issue, as you've said yourself, is really the sanitary issue. I mean, that's the thing. And you've had a 62-year run, or the building has had a 62-year run. Great. Is 250 square feet going to be worth having to do something about that? And I don't sort of see how you're going to be able to get around it. The county health department will have its view on that as well, but I think that's going to be a major issue.
And even if the health department answered in the affirmative that, hey, everything is fine here, I still think when you have a cooperative with more owners, they might have the impetus and the desire to pursue grants. So, I think it's in some respects more likely that you're going to get an upgraded sanitary system sooner on this site than later because of the form of ownership. It's one of those that you have an incentive to plan for the longevity of your asset as opposed to a motel. I don't know a lot about running a motel, but I do know that if I can rent more rooms more of the time without having to replace the sanitary, it's better in my pocket at the end of the day, as opposed to more enjoyable to own.
Plus they'll share the cost, right? So that's how cooperatives work.
That's exactly.
You've got those 35 owners are all going to share in the cost of upgrading the system.
Good point.
Yeah, I take this a lot more seriously than I think you project, Andy. You know, it's right on the water. It's terribly over capacity in terms of the allowable flow. It's a real detriment to the environment. And I understand it may cost $800,000, but that's, you know, that's just the way it is now. And, you know, we can't just brush that aside and say, well, you know, it's going to cost too much money. We're just going to live with it. I reject that argument. You know, I think, you know, you mentioned that the conversion occurred in 1985, but the requirement to register was 1984, and you sort of brushed that aside because it was only several months. They didn't follow that requirement when they were supposed to. I just, you know, I would take, you know, this thing is a hornet's nest, I think. I don't think it's that, you know, it's that easy to just accept all this. So I would take a fine-tooth comb to it, and I would require as much as we're allowed by the code. And if we come up with, you know, and who knows what kind of we don't even know what kind of sanitary system is there now, what's going into that sound. So, yeah, that's my feeling about it, and I would be very, very skeptical about approving this unless we find out a lot more.
Anything other than the sanitary? I mean, that jumps out.
That's what bothers me more than anything else.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree with Lou. You want to go around the table?
You can go first, Columbo.
I agree with Lou. I think from reading what Tina provided us with, this had a CO for a motel. It was called the Sun and Sand Motel when it got first approved. I don't know if the health department has a different flow for motel versus residential cooperative. It's a higher flow, right?
Motel, well, it goes by size. It's lower than residential use, cooperative would.
But higher than motel?
So motel has a use, and then resort and like, you know, apartment unit are similar. I don't know them off the top of my head, but it's order of magnitude.
So
motel's lower.
So, yeah, motel's lower. So we're talking here about grandfathering. The only grandfathering I see in here is for a 35-unit motel. And if the, let's call it alleged illegal conversion to a resident, I was on the board in 1985 when the co-op blitz hit East Hampton, and that legislation was written to attempt to regulate the conversion of motels to cooperatives or condominiums. And it was a very serious issue at the time, especially when you had these pre-existing motels that didn't have enough parking, didn't have enough sewage, and you were basically turning them into individual residential units that could be used year-round. So there's a question about the intensification of use, the intensification of sewage flow, water use, traffic, et cetera. And so what I'm seeing here is that there may be, I don't know what the health department considers to be the, you know, I don't know what they consider that they've approved in the past. The health department approved a 35-unit motel. We don't know. We don't know what they approved. But if they approved a 35-unit motel, which has subsequently been converted into a 35-unit residential cooperative without town approval and perhaps without health department approval, that could be a fairly major intensification of a use that actually, by today's standards, would be, an environmental problem without converting to a residential resort. So I feel like, I think this is unfortunately another example in Montauk where things were overdeveloped without the proper infrastructure here by the dock and downtown. And that now the chickens are coming home to roost. And we're being asked not only to approve this 40-year-old conversion without permits, but we're being asked to expand the use. And I'm not on board with it. If they put in an alternative system, then you're starting to get to a point where the trade-offs might work, but we're a long way from that.
No, I mean, I agree. I think, it has to go to health department and we should get the history of what happened. We don't know what the septic is there now. And so, yeah, more information is needed from the health department.
And I'm happy to provide that, health department. And I don't mean to in any way minimize the fact that, yes, you have a motel or resort units that have a sanitary system that's an aging system. The question is, how do we replace it? Not should we replace it? Clearly we should. But my position is I don't think this board has the authority to tell us to replace it. But I'm telling you, I would like to replace it too. So I'm going to explore that too. But part of it's going to be based on, what the health department is going to say back to us. I don't believe the sanitary count is going to change, based on the size of the units or the use of. But I'm not going to speculate on that. I'm going to apply to the health department and I'll get back to you on that.
One other quick to what's been said. If you divide 800,000 by 35, it's about 25,000 a unit to do an $800,000 upgrade. Amortized over
25 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm the last one, Sam. So I think other board members have made good points. On the face of it, this small expansion to the managers, is not a very big deal. But I think that the health department is key here. I think it's a non-starter if they determine that, and Randy sort of said what I was going to say, that happens a lot, was that, is that if they determine the flow of what you have now or what you're proposing is more than what's approved, then you have to build another,
But we'll be responsive to whatever the health department says.
Yeah, that. So we would have authority because our code says if you have more flow with your proposal, you have to put in, our code clearly says that. I think we have a little more leeway even than that. Our standards for a conversion say that, sanitary is something we're supposed to look at. Obviously, I respect there's something already there and it's not like we can take it away however environmentally bad it is. And so we're looking at existing versus what's proposed. But I think the starting point is, I agree with others that when I read this, I said, you probably need to put in a modern system. It's premature, I think, to make any final decisions on this. It sounds like you also have questions about the legality of our code with requiring conversions to be approved. As you know, that's not for us to decide as part of our code. And so we're gonna, act as if it's legal until we know it's not. And practically speaking, I do think the uses are a little bit different. Although as other board members have alluded to, I'm not sure that, the resort status is worse than a hotel in terms of community impact. But to me, the biggest thing is sanitary. I also think drainage is a pretty big deal. And if it turns out that you're putting in sanitary structures, I think you should probably tackle drainage too. Although, again, we don't know what's currently there.
We will address drainage.
Yeah, so I think those are the two big issues. I agree with you about screening. I think that I'm pretty comfortable. We would want to hear from the public at a public hearing, but I agree that I think aesthetically and given the neighborhood, that's not a very big deal. So more work to do on the previous two issues, and they could be very, very big or not.
Could you also let us know who owns each unit? Or You mentioned that the Zorni family owned, it sounds like you're saying that they owned the whole place, that it's split up between family members.
I think that they are probably grandchildren, to be honest.
So it's all in their family?
No, there are outside units there. I don't know I don't know that I could get them to allow me to disclose the actual owners, but I can give you.
I just need to know how many are individual units, individual owners, and how many are part of this Norney family.
Okay.
You know, Lou mentioned that body of water, it's Block Island Sound, right?
Yes.
You know, I mean, it seems to me that just on the basis of your proximity to Block Island Sound, the need to upgrade the sanitary system just, screams out right there.
Well, I will say that is also a very well flushed, it's not an inland acaponic harbor. There are different standards that apply to that. So there is something that says that actually is less of a condition than it would be.
You have I'm just considering the fact that every single person on this board, I think, has spoken in favor of, upgrading that system, whatever legal and
Yes.
so you see it. You know what you got to do.
Let me explore it and see what we can
But
come up
you'll
with.
definitely show us before the next commission or next time you appear, health department
yes.
approval and drainage design, because
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, so should the applicant confirm how many units, are present, because you've got various numbers here, 44, 30.
I'll give you 9 units right now and I'll reduce it to 35.
Should an EAF Part 1 be prepared?
Yes.
Yes, go around. Planning board wish to consider conditions relating to capping the number of units on the site? That's something for now or for down the road.
Well, I think 100%, if you get this, I
And
think
we have
cap.
to come to you if we want more units.
Yeah.
We can't-
Well, and you're so far over that it's
I would agree to it anyway.
yeah, I know. Yes.
Where would you even put them?
Yeah, well, that's what it's for.
Crow's nests.
Does the planning board, 35, right, they just changed it. Does the planning board wish to consider the conditions relating to sanitary infrastructure, additional screening, stormwater management, and/or additional special criteria for conversions
Should we determine that?
down the road?
Other than screening, I don't know if the board actually.
Yeah, well, the screening, that's pretty in the.
Lighting too.
Should that was mentioned.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Should the applicant clarify the size and number of bedrooms the development currently contains to enable comparison to special permit standards for resort?
Yeah.
That was something that
Yeah, I'll submit the
that's
floor
where I was
plans.
going
I
with
got
that
'em.
question before. Should the applicant clarify their coverage information?
Yes,
Should the applicant clarify the building height?
yes.
Should the applicant provide details on sanitary infrastructure?
Yes.
Should the applicant provide details on stormwater infrastructure?
Yes.
Should the applicant clarify parking details and drive aisles to be sure they're compliant with town standards?
Yes.
Yes, all around. Should the applicant consider buffering the parking consistent with town standards? And that's on the west side, is it?
The west side, I think, is the only area that.
All right. Should the applicant provide enhanced landscaping? And
To be determined.
that's an open area. Should the applicant clarify if lighting, is required and provide lighting compliant with planning board standards?
Yes.
Yes.
And should the applicant clarify the setback from the tidal wetland boundary?
Yep.
By the way, what is that greenhouse on the second floor facing north?
The greenhouse?
It's kind of like a glass enclosed. I went there to count the units, and I don't know whether to count that as a unit or not.
We'll look at the floor plans, this will show everything.
Okay. It's got a number on the
There is a
outside.
greenhouse on the CO, so.
Yeah, so it's a greenhouse.
Yeah, I was just wondering what.
That's a spaceship Earth, that you can live in that site and never have to leave.
It's a new thing, get with it, man.
But hopefully that'll be clarified in
What's
the,
the flow rate for a greenhouse?
thank you.
Thanks very much. See you again. Okay.
Tina, what's all that black stuff? Water.
That's the stuff that goes into Block Island Sound, but I wasn't going to say anything about it.
Moving quickly too, because it's so close.
Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I don't know, there's, this is a bulkhead, and there's like reinforcements, these are rocks and things.
You know, to the, a little bit to the side, if you go out of it. See that big cloud? The big what?
Yeah, right there.
This is deeper than all. Is that just vegetation?
Could be just.
Or just take in the water?
The black there.
That's the abyss that we throw people in. It's kind of a secret amount of.
So the previous planning board members.
Bermuda Triangle.
Bermuda Triangle.
For wayward attorneys.
I'm sure that's.
Good to know I have a few.
Yeah, part of the drainage, we're gonna wanna see it.
Montauk is full of all kinds of secret things.
All right, leave, we can't talk about it.
That's it. All right. Okay, the last item on the work session agenda is the Springs General Store application. I see the applicant approaching the podium, and we'll hear first from Tina's.
The chair is closer to the door.
Beware of the abyss.
Okay, this is the application for Springs General Store. The planning board has seen it before a few times, and the last review date was September 28th, 2022. This is the location of the site. Probably all know already. To the north here is Acquonic Harbor, and this is Pussy's Pond, so it's close to two bodies of water. Both sensitive locations. I'm going to bring up the site plan now. The site plan application is made to convert an existing 175 square foot storage shed to a wine sales location. Add an indoor table with 4 seats to an existing retail takeout food store. Maintain 3 picnic tables for patrons that are outside, and abandon existing kayak rental use. The subject parcel is roughly 57,000 square feet excluding wetlands, and is located in the neighborhood business zone. It's improved with a 2-story structure, 2.5-story structure known as the Springs General Store, and it's within the Springs Historic District, and is itself considered by the town of East Hampton to be a historical site. Since the last review, several changes to the proposed site plan have been made. The applicant reported that a water line break internal to the property necessitated more improvements than they were originally planning, especially internal to the building. Additional changes to the site plan that the board, that are new since the last time the board looked at it. I'm going to try to summarize quickly here. There's a new ADA compliance strategy put forth by the applicant to be located on the southern side of the building. Here, there's going to be an ADA ramp and paved ADA parking that would provide access to the front door of the facility. Other improvements that are newly proposed include the removal of existing structures shown in red, which is helpful to kind of visually see. Removal and relocation of an ice machine, removing an existing fence, removing a deck and playhouse, and then some things are going to be relocated. So the dumpsters being relocated, walk-in coolers being relocated, and the generators being relocated. And you'll see the new locations have been called out. So a garage near the property line here is going to be renovated. The generators proposed to be located here. There's a discrepancy. We'll talk about that later. Table for 4 is going inside the facility. They have made the point that they're keeping their seats at 16, which is consistent with the takeout use. This is the one sales location that's similar to the last review. There's been a fence added. I believe it's been moved to avoid the 100-foot setback from the wetlands. And there is a substantial new revegetation program also added since the last review. The project is type 2, according to SECRA, prior to this review. Regarding the ADA ramp, I'm going to start going through the points in the memo now. The fire marshal has reviewed this and determined that it is compliant with ADA. At the last work session, the board advised the applicant to find strategy that was compliant with the comments from the ADA advisory committee, the fire marshal. So they have satisfied the fire marshal comments. We do recommend as the next step that the ARB review this earlier in the process than would normally be expected and provide comments to planning. Because this is within the historic district, the ARB has jurisdiction over changes, especially to the front facade of the facility. We also do think it's an important thing if the ARB is satisfied that the ADA committee also be engaged to be sure they are comfortable, because they did not approve of the originally fourth solution for ADA compliance. Regarding the nature of the operation, during the last discussion and after the post-meeting report requested several clarifications regarding how the new site would operate. The applicant has answered all that in their response, and I'm summarizing that information they provided here. So the highlights, the planned hours are 11 to 9 p.m. Only one additional employee will be required. The sale of other items besides wine is proposed. The applicant has confirmed that the Springs General Store is currently permitted by the SLA to sell cider and beer. And then they are proposing to add this existing, the new wine sales use. Regarding this, the planning department is recommending that the applicant provide its existing permit from SLA to the board, and so the board has a full understanding of what's currently permitted, as well as the pending applications, so you may have a chance to understand how the SLA is considering regulating the site. So I think further clarification regarding these issues is still necessary. The applicant also confirmed that on-site consumption of alcoholic beverages is proposed. So the beer, the cider purchased from the Spring Store is going to be permitted on the site, as well as the wine that was in the applicant's response. And then regarding special events, the applicant indicated that there were not formal events anticipated, but that informal gatherings of musicians that has historically occurred on Sunday nights would be expected to continue. Regarding the use, so there was a lot of talk about this at the last meeting, and irrespective of the wine sales location being small in size, there is a change in the nature of the on-site use associated with its introduction to the site. And we have the planning department that is, excuse me, received, public comments already expressing concerns regarding the changes on the site with respect to the neighborhood and historic character. And the discussion at the last meeting really centered around how do we ensure that planning at this stage does not negatively impact neither the site nor the surrounding community. So to further the discussions on this, the planning department recommends that the applicant submit the SLA permit documentation to allow a better understanding of how the on-site consumption is regulated by SLA in order to further consider how this new use on the site is considered by the board. In discussions at the last meeting, there was talk of covenants and restrictions, a kind of comprehensive package that would regulate the new use in a way that everybody's comfortable that the history of the site would be respected. And I included some of the examples that things were discussed, that consumption could only be at the 16 seats, or limits to the number of folks congregated on the site. So those are just examples of some of the things that were discussed at the last meeting. So once the planning board gets the documentation from SLA, we recommend that that being considered, and that the board and the department and the applicant work together to generate conditions that would provide for the long-term stewardship of the site in a way that the board felt comfortable with. Regarding natural resources special permit jurisdiction, the applicant has updated the site plan to show very clearly the 100-foot regulated setback line and the 150-foot jurisdiction of NRSP. The structures have been moved, so there are no variances required for the application now. And once the planning board determines that the application is complete, it should be, referred to ZBA, but the planning board does need to be comfortable with the site arrangement and scope before that happens. Regarding parking and navigation, parking calculations have been provided and meet the town's requirements. The driveway widths weren't labeled. This was something that was discussed and commented on in previous iterations of this. We do think the applicant should clarify the navigation approach on the site and whether or not they're providing compliant drive aisles, which is appropriate. And the back parking lot is going to be substantially disturbed to install the new IA system, so providing a compliant parking area concurrent with the restoration of that area seems feasible and reasonable. If it's not already based on this layout, we just can't tell. And also truck loading and unloading should also be addressed to ensure that there's appropriate navigation area, and that should be shown on the plan. Regarding the sanitary system, the applicant is proposing to install an IAOWTS on the site. This is a benefit of the application. They are also increasing the setbacks between the system and the wetlands, another positive improvement. There were some detailed sanitary plans submitted, and the town engineer will be looking at those to ensure compliance with all appropriate standards. Same thing regarding stormwater. If there are dry wells proposed now, I believe that's a new addition. I don't think those were on the last plan. Town engineer will review those details to make sure they're compliant. Regarding the renovations proposed at this time, those were not part of the last scope that the planning board reviewed. We do recommend that the applicant submit floor plans so we can understand what type of renovations are occurring as part of the overall development program for the site at this time. They have submitted renderings that show the proposed new look of the building from Old Stone Highway. There's some different ones I'm just kind of scrolling through. Again, this will be something that the Architectural Review Board really has jurisdiction over the finishes. Oh, I'm sorry. Talk fast, walk fast.
Can I just see the
I'm sorry.
The whole.
Let me go back.
Just the front. I just want to see the.
Yeah.
That. Okay.
So, if they're going to ARB to review the ADA ramp, which is shown on the renderings, I think it's a good idea to kind of get the input on the finishes as well.
Is the ADA ramp on that?
It's right here.
Oh.
You can see it better here. See, that's kind of right to the south of the building.
So it zigzags back to the front?
Yeah, it kind of goes up and to the side. And, it looks like that was done to minimize the impact on the front of the building, which is smart, I think. So regarding coverage, a new revegetation is proposed with this iteration of the application, which greatly increases natural vegetation on the site, another benefit.
So Tina, so lawn essentially is eliminated on that?
I wouldn't say it's eliminated, but it's greatly reduced. And I'm just going to try to go to the re-veg plan so you can see the species. It's mostly, I started looking at it, it's mostly native species that are being employed, if not all, and it does greatly reduce the lawn area, and it does close off the access to the harbor.
Okay.
I'll find that in a second. It's hard to do while I'm talking. Regarding the generator, I just put here, this is something that should be clarified. There was 2 different locations of the generator shown, so the applicant should just rectify what they're proposing. The comment that I have and the recommendation to make to the board regarding this proposed location, which is at the rear yard line. There is an adjacent residential property here, and it would be, generators as noise emission sources. I don't think are appropriately placed right on property lines, especially if there's other interior areas of the property that would be more suitable for use. So if this is the correct location at the rear line, I don't recommend that this is appropriate. Also, setbacks in neighborhood business are doubled when you're adjacent to residential properties, so this wouldn't be compliant. I think they'd want to move that anyway to avoid needing to seek a variance for it. So even though, well, actually, I'm sorry, I misspeak. The planning board would have the authority to waive the setbacks because it's an accessory structure. I don't recommend you do so because it's a noise emission source next to a residential property. Also, the fuel should be specified. Propane is the recommended type. Regarding lighting, no information on site lighting has been submitted. I believe it may be minimal after discussions with the applicant. If it is, I think we just need to see the fixture information and ensure compliance with the planning board standards. And I mentioned already the landscaping plan, which includes over 11,000 square feet of revegetation by native species. So in conclusion, the application does remain incomplete. The ARB's input on the new ADA approach should be sought as soon as possible. And I do also recommend that the planning board send a letter to the Disability Advisories Committee to get their input as well. The planning board should also be receiving considered SLA permit information in order to inform your understanding of the nature of the new proposed use. And we should start to create a plan for the stewardship of the site that includes covenants and restrictions associated with the new operations to ensure that the nature of the location can be preserved with this new use in place. And then additional details are needed on some of the other items as noted already. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tina, for this comprehensive report for the application. The applicant?
My name is John Bennett, and I'm going to just talk about the use, and then I'm going to defer to Mike Shiano from InterScience Research Associates. I think it's quite clear that one of the concerns that people have about this, and it's a concern that I share as a longtime resident, I mean, my entire life on the East End, is something that is being presented as what this is, which is a grocery store, which is what it always has been, with an added very small retail store for the sale of wine, not spirits. And somebody at one point said, I don't really care if it's wine or spirits. I care, and I think you should care, because it significantly impacts the character of the use. And what I'm going to talk to you about is how what we've tried to do is make this use, alcohol-related use on the premises, self-limiting. You should be aware that on January 9th of this year, conditional approval was received from the State Liquor Authority for on-premise consumption. And the only condition is that operations are open and begin. And I had a very long discussion with the clients about this. They could have opened up at that point. They could have started under the certificate of occupancy and under the SLA grant of authority, could have at that point started on-premise consumption of alcohol. There's no question about that. The certificate of occupancy allows for it. The SLA said that was okay. January 9th, 2023, we'll give you the documentation of that. I had a very strong, a very heart-to-heart conversation with the client and the clients, and we agreed that we weren't going to do that because we were going to act in good faith with this board to try to come to a understanding that would allay this board's understandable concerns about this morphing into something that nobody wants to have happen here, which is, for lack of better description, an out-of-control alcohol-fueled gin mill. I just don't say it as it is. There are certain sites and operations I'm born and raised here, know East Hampton well. In East Hampton, I drive by them and I say, how the hell did that happen? I mean, this was a sleepy little restaurant, which is now, an out of control, booth booze filled, Bacchanalian place. And I understand and I agree why you don't want that to happen. I think you guys are all knowing the places that I'm talking about. But remember something, this doesn't have a certificate of occupancy for a bar. It doesn't have a certificate of occupancy for a restaurant. It has a certificate of occupancy for a food store. It's very small, and the use is self-regulating. How else have we tried to self-regulate this? You can say, oh my God, you got people wandering all over the property, stumbling all over the grass. What I'm trying to fight is the nightmare concern that you folks have, which is why we're revegetating over 12,000 square feet of this property. It's going to limit what happens on the property, number one. Number two, the place closes at 9. It's been a long time since this was the sort of activities I engaged in, a really long time. But I will tell you that when, as a young guy, I used to go out, you didn't start thinking about whether or not you were going to go out and drink hard alcohol until about 10 o'clock. This place is going to be closed at 9. It's going to serve wine and beer, no hard liquor. We've purposely made it that way to allay the fears that the board has. When I was a kid hanging out around here and somebody said, want to go out and have some stuff to drink, if somebody said, let's go to wine bar, you would have looked at them like they were crazy. Kids are going out and doing shots of tequila. Listen, I'm just trying to be real life about this stuff. What we've tried to do is put enough conditions in here, and we're more than happy to work with you about to come to some agreement so that it's actually self-regulating. You're not gonna be able to I can't have a bar here. Bars have hard alcohol. People go out and drink hard alcohol mostly at bars. They drink at 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. Can't happen here. The CO doesn't allow it. We're trying to make sure that it's physically not able for that to happen. And I want to commit to you folks that we're going to work with that. And probably the best part of the good faith, as I said, on 1/9/2023, and the SLA gave us an on-premises approved only on opening and beginning operations. We could have started then. I said, no, don't do that. We've committed to work in good faith with this board to allay any concerns that you have. And the commitment stands, and I'm reaffirming that tonight. The retail store was given a conditional approval from the SLA on October 13th, 2022, and I'll give you the documentation about that. But again, it was only subject to opening and being open for operation. Now that one, we couldn't have done that because we're here asking the board for a change of use from dry storage to retail sales for this building that's about the size of a parking lot. So in terms of the volume, it's going to be self-limiting as well. The people who are going to operate this, 2 of whom are sons of mine, have 2 successful restaurants in New York, and those do have full liquor licenses, and they do stay open late. And one of the things that they've said to me is they're sick and tired of that sort of stuff. They've tried to bring other operators into it. They live in Springs, they rent in New York, they live in Springs. They're here to continue this as part of the heritage of Springs. I think we got a little bit of a bum rap. We had people in the beginning, I had people come up to me at the store asking when it's going to open, when it's going to open, when it's going to open, when it's going to open. And when they found out that the operators were local boys who were interested in preserving this as part of the sense of place and heritage of that area, the Springs, they were very, very relieved. I just want to share a little anecdote with you about Daniel and Evan and their partner Josh's commitment to make this continue as part of the culture of the Springs area. I drove by there on July 4th. I mean, the store's been closed since the transfer, and there must have been 60 people there. The store was closed, but they were doing what they usually do on July 4th. And I put an immediate call into my son Daniel. What the hell are you doing? You have insurance issues. You've got these people they're essentially using your property that you own. You're not there. They're playing guitars, they're having a great time. They're doing what they've always done at that time of year. I guess it's a July 4th thing that they do. It could be wrong with the date, but yeah, maybe it's another thing. And he said to me, I know, Dad, you know, you're taking it from a lawyer's point of view. You're concerned about liability and stuff, but that's the stuff we don't want to change there. That's the stuff that we want to embrace. And that's been it's been a cultural center in effect and of the area, and we want to keep it that way. So I commit to you that that's what we want to do. We'll work with you with the conditions to allay your concerns. I think the best show of our good faith is that when that on-premise license came in, you know, we said, we're not, you know, tough shape that the store was in, we could have actually opened it and used it as an on-premises place within the limits of the store. And we said, no, we're not going to do that because we committed to the board to work with them to make sure that they would allay their concerns. That's what I wanted you to say here. Please take that to heart. We're here to make this the new and improved version of the Springs General Store, but keep it an important cultural part of that area. That's their dream. That's what they want to do. They're not trying to fix this up and sell it and flip it or something like that. They're committed to this. I give you my word on that. Michael, did you want to talk about some of the more technical aspects? Thank you.
Tina touched on most of the changes and most of the information. But I just wanted to point out a few things. First, you
identify yourself?
Oh yes, Michael Shiano from InterScience on behalf of the applicant. So first, regarding the ADA, everything really. So initially, we were thinking before the pipe had burst, just to give you kind of a history of what we were thinking that we were going to do. We had the kind of the switchback ramp there because we were going to initially provide ADA access through the side entrance, and then we were going to present to the board that we'll come back later and we'll make the front of the building also, the front two doors also ADA compliant. And then the pipe burst and there was damage inside, and through the insurance monies that they were able to get from this, they are now committed to make the entire interior, both front doors and the side door, all ADA compliant. So there's going to be the ramp, and the ramp is going to be able to access the front two doors, and the front two doors are going to be made the proper width. And so I just wanted, and the bathroom that's inside will also be ADA compliant. So I thought that was important to note. So we're kind of going even further than the disability board had asked us to go. And so all public entrances will be ADA compliant based on the plans. And there were floor plans that were submitted on June 28th. I know that we had made two separate submissions. It was because we didn't have the survey yet. We at least wanted to get something in, so I apologize for bifurcating that. But the floor plans for both actually all three floors, the basement, the first floor, and the second floor are all in the record right now.
When was the pipe burst?
February 6th, 2023. And
supplemented, we can provide additional copies. They're also very similar to what's been sent to the building department.
Yes.
Yes, because you made a building permit application to do the work.
I'm trying to get a sense of the timeline here.
Yes, yeah. So we were so I guess the last time that we spoke with this board was at the end of, what did we say, September of last year? Yeah, so we were getting everything ready in order to, we were speaking with a landscape designer. So some of these things were also in the works, where we were looking to do the landscape design work. So we worked with someone, and then we prepared the plans for it, and to try and address the board's concerns about the use of the property and to try and control that. In addition to, this is kind of what their vision was from the start, they just hadn't put it on paper yet. Just to clarify, all of the proposed plantings that are within 150 feet from the wetlands will be native plants, which includes about 40 eastern red cedars, 57 groundsel bush, 91 bayberries, 22 marsh elders. So we're really kind of committed to making it a nice native planting area. In addition, part of the proposal is to take out the wisteria vines that are growing on some of the existing trees and try and take out some of the non-native plants that are there as well. I know that's more of a NRSP concern, but I just want it's important because it's some stuff that the applicants are proposing. If you're curious about what these pathways and whatnot are going to look like, you can actually go there now because they have implemented a no-mow area in the areas that we're proposing to plant later. So you can go and you can walk through these paths and kind of see what, obviously not with all of the shrubs and trees that are going to be put in, but at least have some idea about what it looks like now.
So the paths will be the grass?
Paths will be grass that are there and they'll just mow them. And then, but the taller grass that you will see when you go there will be shrubs and there'll be other stuff that will supplement those areas. We've also just update the board. In August, we submitted the grant application for the septic system upgrade, and we're waiting to hear back on the status of that. I think that's in a month or two, we should hear on whether we are granted with that. So it's still technically, the septic system upgrade is still technically contingent on us receiving the grant money for that, but just to let you know that we've submitted that application. And I've also spoken with Melissa Winslow a few times about that through the course of us leading up to submitting that. So we're on board with that. I think that probably the most orderly thing for us to do would be to go through the questions that are at the end of your memo, and I can answer questions as we go through. So
we'll do that.
Right.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Bennett, I want to commend you on, appreciate your serious, sober, business-like, passionate demeanor. I know, you express a great interest in this project being successful, so I want you to know that I see that and appreciate it.
I appreciate that.
There are a lot of good things that have happened here that you propose, and I just want to bring those out because, it seems like we always bring out the negatives in applications. I'd like to bring out what I feel are positives, and there are a few here that I want to point out. I think the new ADA access is a great solution. I'm glad that we figured that one out. So kudos on that one. The other big positive is the revegetation, not only the amount of revegetation that you're doing, which is about 25%, but also the kinds of plants that you're using, the natives. So I think that's a really big plus and something that I really appreciate you doing. The other thing that I always find important is an upgraded septic system. I'm glad I'm sorry that it's conditional on you getting the grant, but I'm hoping that because it is a voluntary upgrade, that they should give you the grant. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed there because I think it's really absolutely necessary that you upgrade the septic in this location.
It's not a full grant, I may add, so there's still some pain to the.
I think the generator, I think you didn't address that, but I think it should be closer to the, away from the property line.
Should I address it or?
Well, let's you can come back.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so I think that's a positive. All right, so now there are a few things that we need to work out that are of concern to the community and myself, and I just want to talk about those as well. So we talked, the last time we met, you were agreeable to a covenant, some sort of covenant agreement stipulating a sort of way that we can eliminate the fear of this turning into the bacchanalia that you described earlier. So I would like, I know you're going to work with the planning department to come up with the wording to that, but I think that's important.
It is.
So now, as far as the SLA permits, I printed a couple of things out from the SLA handbook for retail licensees. And I also wanted to point out what I think is a contradictory statement that was made in your narrative. You stated that the wine shop is a separate business, but you also state that wine purchases can be consumed at the general store inside and out. So that seems to me to be contradictory, because if you're saying that that's a separate business, the shed, the converted shed, which is now a wine retail shop, and you're allowing the people to buy the wine, which you're applying for an off-premises consumption license, and then they're taking it over to your business only yards away, the general store, and consuming it there. That to me is not separating those two businesses. That's really combining the two into one. So I think we need to fix that. I think that needs to be addressed. Now, in the handbook, it says if you have an on-premises license, you cannot allow anyone to leave your licensed premises with liquor or wine. So I know that, you're not going to allow that. That's not a problem. If you have an off-premises license, you cannot let anyone consume alcohol beverages in your licensed premises. But in a way, you're doing that because you're allowing, I don't know how that's going to work, where you have one business yards away with an on-premises license. You have another one that's off-premises, but you're allowing the off-premises purchases to be consumed in the on-premises licensed business. So I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. I don't understand the SLA.
I can explain it, but I'll wait.
Okay. The other paragraph in this handbook talks about extension of your premises. As a licensee, you are required to confine the service and consumption of alcoholic beverages to the area that is licensed. You cannot use any unlicensed area for the sale or consumption of alcoholic beverage. I think that also, talks to this situation with the two different licenses so close together. And lastly, I think whatever we agree to, however we resolve these questions with regard to the two licenses, consumption, and so forth, they do allow for stipulations to be, I'll just read it and then I'll describe what I mean. Stipulations are agreements that a tavern, bar, or restaurant owner makes with the surrounding community on matters including operating hours, live music, outdoor seating, etc. If a municipality or community board and the applicant reach an agreement with respect to the operation of the establishment, the SLA can incorporate these stipulations into the license. So if we do agree to some kind of covenant to ensure that the place doesn't turn into a nightclub scene, can we include those stipulations within the SLA license? Would you be agreeable to doing that? So that's what I'm proposing. So those are my comments. As far as the hours are concerned, in a way, those are, it's a convenience to stay open till 9 o'clock. I think again, we're going back to the same fear that you have nighttime entertainment and that sort outside that, would be distasteful to people in the neighborhood. And that's it, that's all I have.
All right, anyone else?
Yeah, I think we should go around on this one, don't you?
Yeah. All right, Ed?
Thanks very much for the presentation. I appreciate it. And as someone who is a almost daily patron of the Old Springs General Store, I'm very happy to have it coming back online after missing a season. So thank you for that. And yeah, as Lou said, there are a lot of great things about this, and I do appreciate your desire to preserve what's there and continue to have it be the community resource that it is. You know, the revegetation plan is great. I really do hope that that you get the grant for the sanitary. I think it's really important in this site that happen. Question for you: how is the apartment to be used?
It'll be used for housing.
For
however it's allowed under the.
It'll be rented out to someone, or
either be rented out,
or someone
or one of the
someone who works in the store might.
Either maybe somebody who works in the store, or maybe rented out to a third party. There's no limitation per se on it.
The apartment exists. So we're just going to continue to.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm just curious about how you intend to use it, since, as you know, affordable housing is a real issue in our town and Springs in particular. So,
the thought that I've talked about with the owners is, you know, staff, not only for this operation, but they also, I don't know if you guys know this, but they run a place called Doubles in Amagansett Square. And, you know, I don't have to tell anybody about how hard it is to get places for employees to live. So that may very well be part of it, but I haven't really thought about pinning that down. But
I just throw it out there. You don't have to.
By its very nature, it's going to be affordable.
Yeah, all right.
Maybe not under the specific guidelines, but, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that you're obviously you're aware that it's an issue, and if it could some way be used for staff housing, that would be great.
My staff travels from the west for hours sometimes, so.
All right, so the issue here is really, clearly the issue here is that is the SLA and alcohol consumption, right? There's no question about that. And we're not here to make business decisions for you, but I don't really, frankly, understand why it's so important. But you've determined that it is. You've gotten the license. That's fact now, right? But Lou has brought up a lot of good questions about kind of the nature of both on-premise and off-premise licenses, and I think there's a lot that we have to learn about that and what role we can play in determining how they get implemented in effect, right? Because I don't frankly understand how having an on-premise consumption license doesn't make you a bar. I don't really frankly understand that. And I think that's the thing that we want to prevent here. You said yourself, you drove by on the 4th of July, there were 60 people here, just because that's where they gather. Having lived in Springs for many years, I mean, this is a place where people gather, even if they're not going to the store, right? Exactly. So I think it's a natural. And I think we have to be really, really careful about, how this gets implemented so that it doesn't become the thing we all have already said many times we don't want it to become. Myself. I understand. But, as we know, this is a stop that people make on motorcycle trips, on, bike trips. People travel to be here, to hang out in the summer. They do. And as we know, this has been oversubscribed for, I want to make this point.
No, I'm just saying, I was trying to interject a little bit of levity. Said motorcycles. I said, don't worry, no Japanese bikes.
Whatever. So I think
if you knew the Harley culture, you'd know what I was saying.
The issue is it is a place that has been for decades oversubscribed, right? There are many more people who are, eating outside, people who bring their lunches from elsewhere and sit around and hang out, right? So it's a place that has that history and reputation. And I think, adding alcohol to the mix is going to be a little problematic no matter what we try to do. I appreciate the revegetation plan, which is why I asked that question earlier, that in some ways eliminates, kind of a lot of lawn space for people to gather. But I think it's going to be hard to not have this be the thing that we don't want it to be, particularly initially. So I'm not sure how we can create CNRs around that, but I think we need to really think hard about them. And Yeah, I think, as I said, Lou has raised a lot of great questions about, SLAs and about the nature of these licenses and, what's permittable and what isn't. It does seem a little strange to me that, people now could buy, in the last iteration of the general store, could have purchased a beer inside and gone outside to have it, right? Nonetheless, it's certainly an issue that's on many people's minds in Springs at the moment. I've heard a lot from people, my neighbors, about this. We've gotten a lot of letters. You've heard the same kind of comments. So we're going to have to be really cautious and really careful about what happens going forward.
Yeah, I agree with previous board members largely. I think, the revegetation is great. I think you're going to want to go before the ARB sooner than later. What's that?
Please allow us to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and you may have to go back depending on how everything shakes out, but because of, the ADA, we asked you, and then the fire marshal asked you to do it, you complied. I think the plan, it's a positive, but you're changing a historic building, so you just want to make sure that they're on board with that, as well as the other aesthetic, changes you're trying to make in terms of coloring and stuff like that. Just in case there's a big disagreement, you want to get it out of the way. Parking, I understand that there's a pre-existing thing here and we didn't want a major change. I think the split rail fence is a good idea. But I do think the planning department asking for sort of some dimensions, truck turnaround, it's a good idea to know in case we can make it more compliant or totally compliant, just so we have a better understanding. I think we're going to want to see that. And then, like everybody else has said, I think that the real issue here is on-site consumption and the SLA. Reading between the lines, I'm not familiar with SLA. I think we're going to want to see your permit, to see what's approved. I agree with Lou. I know that the SLA works with municipalities about matching goals so that what the town thinks is happening is the same thing that the SLA thinks is happening, because sometimes people who are outside the bounds, the SLA is the controlling factor or the governing body that can keep things in check. And so if their approval or their permit is, broader than ours, I don't think that would be helpful to assuring the community that things are going to be under control. So I think we're going to want to see your current permit and then have some input to make sure that whatever approvals you may get from this board, the SLA is aware of and those things match. Reading between the lines, it seems like, and I don't know the SLA rules fully, but you're selling wine at one business to be consumed at another. So I don't know if the consumption license allows people to bring their own, because it seems like that would be necessary. But you can explain that more thoroughly. I'm not sure. It seemed from what Lou read that selling wine for consumption off-site means you take it home, not onto. But whatever, it's a question that I have for sure, because it seems like there may be a reason to separate these businesses. And I would want to confirm that buying wine at a separate business, carrying it on site to another, it basically implies that people can bring their own beer or wine at least to the general store.
No, it doesn't.
Well, it's a question. I don't know the answer to for sure.
I do, but
great. We talked about last time, I think, limiting wine consumption, or it was floated at least, to tables. It sounds like you're backing off of that a little bit. But like everybody else, I think we're going to have some sort of, some safeguards. You seem willing to work. I think that the details are going to be important on that. And so hopefully we can get on the same page. And as you know, we're treating this as a use and a potential approval that would go beyond you, who may have all the best intentions, but we want to make sure that, the details and the approval and the permits, everything protects the community to the use staying with what you intend and what the board may intend if there's an eventual approval.
Understood.
So what exactly is the license you have? I'm on the SLA website and there's things like, is it OP252? Did you know the exact license you have? And you're applying, I recall you were applying for a liquor license at the shed last time.
It's not a liquor license.
So tell me which one exactly it is, because there are many differentiants there, that you can have.
Excuse me? What is provided? We'll give it to you in writing, but I'd like to be able to answer when I'm done some of the questions.
I'm just.
You'll have your time.
So what I recall this from last year, and I look, and you can have, there's a beer and wine license, there's a liquor license where you can sell liquor and beer and wine. And I'm not suggesting you're gonna sell liquor, you're very clear you're not gonna sell liquor. I just want to be clear about this. Also, if you have one shot of tequila, that's equal to a glass of wine. And it's equal to 12 ounces of beer. It's a standard drink in the United States is 12 ounces of beer, 5 ounces of wine, or 1.5 ounces of a shot of a liquor. And you can be drunk on one glass of wine, legally drunk. So I'm a little cautious about allowing, it is absolutely true.
You need to go back and forth.
So I love so much about this. This is a great improvement. I love the renderings. It's fantastic. But I don't want to see people drinking on premise.
Well, it's gotta be.
It's just, that's where I'm.
SLA says we can't.
That's why I want to, please put it in writing exactly the licenses you have or the licenses you are applying for as well. Thank you.
Okay, so I agree with the positives. Looks great, renderings look great. The ADA ramp looks great, the re-veg looks great. So I have my questions are, I know you want to, I don't know if you're putting in a basement, if there's anything there now or crawl or whatever. It seems like a good idea to me to have the basement, except I'm not sure about the depth of the water there. So my question is, do we have any test holes on site for the septic? Do we have any test hole data that tells us where the top of the groundwater is, where you're proposing to put a basement? That's an open question. The SLA applications that I've read, because this issue comes up constantly, they all have a box that the applicant has to check saying that they are in conformance with local regulations and zoning. So I don't see how you could say that you would, with just an SLA approval, that you could open or you could sell liquor, because, what if you got an SLA approval on a property? I don't know. Anyway, that's what I've seen, that there's a requirement that the applicant states that they are in conformance with local regulation and local zoning. And I don't think that's the case here yet, because we haven't approved a wine store and we haven't approved, well, I don't know. That's my question about that. I think those are my two. I agree with everyone's comments. We'd love to see an upgrade there, because the school has spent a lot of money trying to upgrade the school system. That part of Accomack Harbor has a lot of nitrogen problems. So for the school to be doing what they're doing and the store not to be doing an IA system, it just doesn't make sense. So I hope the water quality board sees it the same way.
Yeah, no, I agree with what everybody has said. I think, I work at the farmer's market there in Springs, and I have to tell you, every Saturday, I had to talk about the Springs General Store with somebody, and their big concern is the wine store, and is it gonna be the same, and all of it. And I think the renderings are really nice. I think you've done a great job. I think the revegetation is gonna do a lot to reduce the space where people can gather, but that is the concern, so, whether we do a covenants and restrictions to limit the number of seats that are allowed to have a bottle of wine. I mean, I don't have a huge problem with somebody having their sandwich, in the evening and buying a bottle of wine and having it, some wine with it. But I think like everybody has said, we've got to move cautiously on this and really think about how we're going to word it. And obviously, all the questions that Lou has brought up need to be answered for sure. I do think those hours will get reduced in the winter. I mean, I used to run the spring general store. So we had, our hours were 7 PM in the winter and 8 PM in the summer. And I'm sure in the winter, those will not stay till 9, I have a feeling.
It was an outside.
Yeah.
What about the breakfast business?
Well, I'm hoping they're going to do all of that. That was one of our biggest.
Spoken by a man who seems to be missing.
I am, as a Springs resident, that early, maybe there's no money in it. I don't know.
No. I mean, there's a lot of money in the breakfast business. A lot of money in the business. Anyways, and I think I agree with what everybody has said, and that is the big sticking issue. And hopefully the IA system does come through for you. It would be huge. And there is a basement there.
Oh, there is.
There is a basement.
Existing basement with partial.
And I could, I didn't have to bend down. It's not a crawl space.
Okay.
There's a full basement.
Surprisingly.
I mean, I don't think it's that wet. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, it was maybe moisture wet, but not like, water coming in wet.
Okay.
More just moldy.
That's going to be important.
And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. I think that what you're getting here is that the thing that look, let me say what everyone else said. Love the revegetation. Really grateful that the ADA issue was addressed. I know for myself that was just a major sticking point. I'm glad that it was addressed. I'm glad the way it was addressed. I think the parking issue, there's probably room for movement, so to speak, on that. We'll come to a resolve. That, to me, in the parking issue, the ADA is the thing that you have to deal with. Everything else, we can figure out a way of how to deal with it. That's my view. But look, at the end of the day, what you really have to deal with here to address the concerns of the community which are being expressed at this table is with respect to your proposal to have a wine shop. And the way to deal with that, I think, is with clarity, which I know you've stated, and I don't doubt your sincerity in it, that you don't want it to be a rowdy bacchanalia. But the way to know that that's not going to happen is CNRs, covenants and restrictions, built into the license issued by the SLA. I think that the first thing you need to do to get that clarity is to provide whatever SLA applications were made, whatever license was issued. I in my life, dealt with a couple of liquor license applications, on premises, off premises, even once did a wine distribution company. Those forms, what Michael was looking at, there must be 24 different iterations of liquor license or wine license issued by the SLA. So, we need to see, the planning department needs to see all the paperwork, everything involving that liquor, that wine shop that you're proposing, so that we know what the parameters are, and we know what we can propose that will successfully be incorporated into whatever license is issued or being issued or will be issued. So that's just number one. What you're hearing at this table is, I don't want to call it confusion, but just uncertainty, because we don't know. And really, it's in your hands to give us that knowledge, give the planning department that knowledge. There's no reason I can think of that you wouldn't. I know that if you were 90 miles to the west, you'd be dealing with a community board that would be telling you how you can operate that place. You know what I'm saying. In the city of New York, you'd be in a different world. Okay, here, it's us. And everybody at this table wants the Springs General Store to succeed. I think everyone at this table wants the owner's vision to succeed. Because, yes, you do have a vision. You didn't just buy this place because you want to run a grocery store. There's another grocery store a mile away that if you want, I think that's available. But the point is that and I know I said this last time, that the Springs General Store is one of the most important assets in this town, and your applicants own it, okay? We want them to succeed. We want their vision. I'm speaking for myself, and I think for the rest of the board, we want that vision to come to fruition in a positive way. But the fear that the community has, and that is being expressed uniformly by the members of this board, is what is going to be, because now you're adding an element that hasn't ever been there before, which is the sale of wine. Okay, fine. Let's know what the regulatory structure that you're applying for, the SLA, let's see what that is, and then come back here and work with the planning department, and we'll figure out what we can do. In my view, it would be covenants and restrictions, but I'm not married to any one particular approach. How we can give the town, the people who live there in Springs, and really the whole town, the comfort of knowing that once that is approved by this board, it's not going to become what you say you don't want and what everybody at this table doesn't want. All right? So it's not, and it's going to be a process, as you know. It's a process. You're going to have to, but the place the process really needs to start is with information. And that information is the stuff that is before the SLA, that the SLA is issued, and we take that and we go from there. You did a great job of basically clearing the decks of just about all the other issues. There is the sanitary, which we all love new sanitary systems, okay? That's pretty much, in all the time I've been here, that's the one immutable truth. If you can come in with a new sanitary system, we all get very happy. But in this particular case, there's something more, and it's central to your client's vision, and it's central to our concerns. So let's start with getting that SLA application into the record, and whatever license or whatever they've issued so far into the record, and we can go from there. All right, and now, go ahead.
If I may, we'll get you copies of the application, we'll get you copies of the conditional approval. The approvals are just conditioned on opening up. These have to be two separate businesses, because one is the retail sale of wine, and it's not a liquor license. I have to stress that, because it is not a liquor license. No spirits.
John, why don't you sell the wine from the store?
You sell the wine. Well, this is how it works. Okay. The wine that is sold from the store is not solely for the premises.
No, but
the wine, it functions primarily like a regular wine store. You go in, they're selling, they've sourced some very interesting organic wines, and they're going to sell this stuff to the general public, and you're going to be able to come in and buy that. Okay.
Whether it's the
you understand
store,
that?
whether it's the retail store that's existing now that has the beer license, or the new wine shop in the shed. Everything, all the paperwork. Let's see all the paperwork.
But just, you know,
what the universe of wine and.
You're going to get all that and a written summary of exactly what we.
But it has to be two separate businesses. So I'll give you a great example. It's required to be, just, if I may, because I want to answer the questions. I represent Joe Guerrera, who with all his Cinderella, East Hampton, Bridgehampton, and in a couple of the locations, he has wine and liquor stores, but they have to be in a separate building, separate location. The closest he was able to do is to cordon off one in a New York application. It has to be a separate business, it has to be physically separated to have retail sale of wines. So what happens, as it's explained to me, what happens is you also have the opportunity with this on-premise license. You can buy a bottle of wine in the retail store. You can take the bottle of wine into the Springs General Store. They'll open it for you, give you not a glass cup, but probably a paper cup because of the single service rules and everything like that. And if at the end you haven't finished the bottle, this is what they do. You give it back to them, they cork it, they put it in a paper bag, and they staple the receipt on it. So that's the whole way of controlling. That's what the SLA requires. I'll get you all this
There's
chapter
nothing
and
you can
verse.
tell me that wouldn't surprise me about how the SLA regulates the physical mechanism of selling.
Exactly. So it is rather controlled.
Yes.
And yes, that's why I let Michael deal with most of the stuff. I know it's not really an elephant in the room. It's the issue in the room is how is this going to be controlled? And we'll work with you to make sure that happens. I'm just going to say we have to have a little bit of flexibility, not enough that I can drive a Mack truck through, but we have to have a little bit of flexibility here. I can't have a situation where one of these Saturday nights, somebody's saying, oh, that's the 16th person, you're in violation of your liquor license. I mean, that's just not, that's not reasonable.
I think you may be getting ahead of yourself in regards to your concerns. Let's do this organically.
Okay.
Like one. Let's do this organically and see what the SLA has, what you've told the SLA, what the SLA is telling you, and what the board wants. It may not be.
I'll be very candid with you. I'll be very, very candid.
Ultimately, concerns, please.
What I'm offering from a point of view of what the SLA on premises license, if you just left that SLA on premises license alone, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't be happy with it. It's very broad. And what but that's why I'm here committing to you to do something more restrictive, actually quite more restrictive than that allows. It essentially allows consumption on the premises. And I was not about to stand in front of you guys, ladies and gentlemen, and say, you should just let the SLA license go on without any conditions, any restrictions, any covenants in your approval. That's why I'm committing that to you, and that's why I'm here. And you got to give me some good faith back.
And it's a two-way street on that, okay? Do know.
That's all I need to hear. That's all I need to hear.
It's been a productive evening.
Well, I still have a question though about can people bring wine from home to the general store? Because there's a strangeness here.
No, you can't do that. No, you couldn't go into, it's not a bar, but it is an on-premises license. You can't go into a bar.
But technically, they're two separate businesses, isn't it a separate premise?
No, but you can't go into a place that has an on-premises license and bring your own.
Well, they are, that they're bringing it from a different business.
Yeah, but it's a related business.
Well, that's a question that I would like to drill in on a little bit because it seems odd that.
Do you know you can't? A restaurant or a bar, which is not, can only purchase alcohol and sell that alcohol from certain places. For example, in my boys' restaurant here, I one time had a client get me some very, very nice single malt scotch, and I gave it to him and said, I don't want to drink this. Sell it in your bar, and they said, we can't. We can't. It has to be a particular vendor, and that's the only alcohol that can be consumed on a place that has an on-premises license.
Those vendors are also subject to the SLA.
Well, I understand, but Randy asked a question, I think it was Randy, about why don't you just sell wine from the general store? And he said, no, it has to be a separate business.
It has to be a separate business.
Right, but then if you take the separate business where you can't bring your own wine to site, but you can, if you buy it from this one special separate business, it's a little odd.
That's very in line with the way the SLA regulates the consumption of alcohol. You can only purchase the alcohol for on-premises consumption from designated vendors. This just happens to be.
You're talking about a retail basis, and the answer to that maybe, I don't know, we'll have to figure it out, we'll drill down on it, but maybe what happens is we get a CNR with the general store that says that the only liquor that can be that can be consumed on premises is liquor, I'm sorry, I keep saying liquor. The only wine that can be consumed on premises is wine that's purchased from
Well,
whatever the wine shop is.
I don't know why that matters to me, honestly.
Well, of course it
You'll
would.
find this out, though.
Well, yeah, well, all I'm saying is I think you should
Well, I would hope
address
it would
it.
matter, though. I hope it would matter, because you want to have you certainly want to have the proprietor being able to control it.
But either way, they would open the bottle and all the steps are the same, except for where they purchased the bottle. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is.
Yeah, but that controls it. If everybody can bring in their wine, that's not controlling.
If you prevent that, if they have, if the Springs General Store is operating under a CNR that says that the only wine
You
that
guys,
they can
I
serve.
don't think you're understanding my concern, because I want to make sure that the liquor license you have for on-site consumption, I don't think you could sell wine from the general store and consume it on site. You have to create this separate business. So I want to make sure that the general store that allows on-site consumption allows for wine purchased at a separate business, this specific one fine, can be consumed. Or in your narrative, I think you understand what I'm saying here,
It
right?
is the same premise, though. So if it's premise, they're all on the
Well,
same property.
and so we don't, what I'm trying to do is get to an answer here sooner than later, and I know that that's your interest too.
Yeah,
So
of
I
course.
all I'm saying is it's a thought, it's a concern, you can address it, I think you
it's all
understand.
It's a real concern. It's a real concern. The concern, if I can articulate it maybe differently, is that the only wine that's going to be sold. Not sold.
It's, are they allowed to consume that wine?
Who?
At the general store.
In other words,
They have an
if I bring
on-premises,
about.
they have an on-premises license.
I think
A
when we get
conditional
this
on-premises
paperwork, we're going to
license.
have our
They do.
answer,
but
and
it's
let's
a
just
good-
get the
it's a good
paperwork and let's
question.
just.
It's certainly a fair question, and you probably have a good answer.
I just want to understand, I'm not being obtuse, I want to understand the question.
In other words, if I bring a bottle of wine.
No,
No, I don't think that's what,
That's a red
From the
herring.
Springs,
yeah.
from the Springs store, I go to the Springs wine store, I buy a bottle of wine. I bring it with me to the Springs General Store, get a sandwich,
You can't do it.
and then I want to
do that.
go have my wine.
Can't do that.
No, but it's not only that, it's not only that. What I'm saying is if you have, if you are we're required to have two separate businesses in order to sell wine, does the on-site consumption allow for people to bring their own wine?
No.
There are weirder rules in the world.
Absolutely not.
Well, their own wine, I'm saying they're bringing it from a
I'll
separate
covenant against that.
See, that's the-
I'm saying-
But because the license won't allow it.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, so you're wondering, since there's two separate businesses that are operating, how can we have an on-site use where someone buys wine and drinks it on site? And how can, and,
Make sure that's explicitly allowed, that's all.
right, and also purchase beer and cider from the Springs General Store and drink that on site? We'll explain all of that.
That's all I want to know.
Right.
Okay.
Great. And it would be great if we could limit the fact that people can't bring other wine, because then they'd have to buy the wine on
It's gotta be
site,
a
so that'd be great.
No, it's not allowed.
DYOB.
No. Well, those are places, believe it or not, that don't have liquor licenses.
That's why it's-
Yeah.
I have a question. So the way I understand, correct me if I'm wrong in any of these assumptions, you're getting an off-premises license for the wine store.
Yes,
Off-premises is clearly defined
yes.
as taking that wine off somewhere where you can drink it. It doesn't, you cannot drink that wine on premises.
Yes, because you can't drink it in the liquor store. You can't drink it in this 1,700 square foot.
There's a fair line of questioning, I think you guys understand.
I'm responding. I'm responding.
Let's just, we can have.
That means you can't go into a liquor store and open it up and drink it there.
Let's
That's
get
what
the
that means.
paperwork,
So what
let's
you're
read it,
saying
or we can
is,
keep
what
going
you're
and
saying
going.
is, I can go into a wine store. I can go into the Springs wine store that Randy mentioned.
Right.
Walk outside, open up the bottle of wine and start
No,
drinking.
you can't. That's always been
That's a
illegal.
complete
That's the whole
separate
brown
violation.
bag.
All right, so if I go from the Springs wine store to a retail store that has an on-premises liquor license, I can take that bottle of wine, sit down at that.
Not if the guy who owns the store won't let you do it.
Well,
can't do
it's a
that.
good, it needs clarification.
Needs, all needs clarification.
You know what?
You can't do
Is the
it.
scenario, you buy a bottle at the shed,
Yeah, it's not
and
gonna.
you take it
So
to
as
the
long as the
general
owner
store, and
allows
it
you
gets
to do it,
opened
you
there.
can do it?
That's
I
correct.
don't think so.
That is
because
what
they have to look-
you are
they have to-
proposing.
You
But
know,
let's just
that's
look
what
at
the
the people
SLA
that
said we
I
can
think
do.
we're all talking over each other.
Yeah, I think.
Let's get some specifics
Thank you,
first.
Tina.
Sorry.
And-
No, you're
and-
right.
It's
No,
not
you're
Mr. Bennett and Lou and everyone,
Yeah, it's
let's
too much.
get, look, what we have
Lay it all
today
out.
is we have a commitment to get the paperwork from which we can
I don't-
address these
On
decisions,
that
these
note,
issues.
Sam, I don't think I've seen those applications.
We're going to give you a written summary.
We'll give you a written
The
summary.
application does not explain any of these questions that we have.
It will explain what their,
It'll say
what
that
their
they have a
business
wine
is
and
going
beer
to be.
license, it say it's off premises. It does not answer these questions that we have.
So the
What it does-
CNRs.
That's what the CNRs,
What they want.
and they will apply to that.
They're gonna have a
Let's get the
narrative of what they
paperwork,
want.
let's get the narrative. If
That's
we
what's
have
important.
questions, let's talk to the SLA.
Okay, yes.
And
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
gonna-
Lots of answers on the website.
Let's do
We're not
that.
gonna resolve them.
Well, I'm not comfortable with, I have an on-premises license and I have a license for the store, which is subject only to these, what's the language that they use? They use open and beginning operation. That's all I have to do. Now, let me finish. I can't open up the liquor store, the retail store, because I need site plan approval from you guys because it's a new use.
Right.
Okay. But I could have, it has a certificate of occupancy. There was a letter from the building inspector that we sent to the SLA, and the SLA was satisfied that given this zoning use and the limitations on the zoning use, that they issued a on-premises use. If you want to talk about putting limitations with your approval, that's what I've offered, but I'm not enough of a liquor license lawyer to know whether or not I can even begin to talk about grafting limitations on the liquor license itself.
Actually is, then you have to do some homework.
Okay.
Okay?
But I would be foolish to say, go ahead. I'm offering to limit the use, but
What has to happen here is we have to get, as I said before, information. We
Yes.
have to know what it is that you've got, what it is you applied for, and we have to know from, and we may need to know from our own council, we may need to retain liquor license counsel to find out the interplay between what we do and what the SLA does. Now, it is my belief that we can influence or basically, influence is probably a bad word, that the SLA is going to have to, that the license is going to have to reflect the concerns of this board. I believe that that's the case. And well, the code, yes. Well, that's how it all comes in.
Yeah,
That's
and to be
the
clear,
point.
not to string you along, I think you were just implying you wouldn't want us to influence what the SLA.
Yeah, influence is a
permit
bad
said.
word, I shouldn't have used it.
Or no, we'll have any, and I think that we want that because.
yeah, but that's not your jurisdiction. This is a preemption issue. I'm not gonna, I think we should.
No, that's exactly correct.
Let me give a real reason, because you came in saying you have this permit that would allow you to do all this stuff we don't want. So say you sell the place, we'd be worried about a permit that was more permissive. than
Wait a
we
minute, you're
intended.
forgetting that I'm offering conditions. I started from saying I have the same fears, the operators have the same
Okay,
fears.
current operators, but you never know. Look,
No, so we'll
one
put
of the main things
we'll
that
put
this
it in your
board has to
conditions and your covenants. I
One
don't,
of
it's
the
like you're
things
forgetting
that-
I said that.
One of the things, and I'm gonna conclude at this
Right.
point. One of the main things with which this board has to be concerned is not the current.
Selling it, of
It's the
course.
future applicant.
Never say never, could happen tomorrow. And this- Sam,
So
absolutely. There's no
let's do
question
this.
about
Let's do this. You'll get us, as you've committed to,
Right.
all the paperwork that was generated by the SLA and provided to the SLA by you. It'll go to the planning department, and then we will figure out, and we may need liquor license counsel to do this, figure out just what it is that this board can generate in terms, in my view, it's CNRs, maybe it's something else. But what this board can generate that will provide the comfort to the community to know that there won't be the thing that you're saying you don't want, and I know we don't want.
If I affirmatively tell you that I'm okay with conditions or covenants on use as a part of your approval, I'm stuck with them. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with messing with the SLA.
But you just said you're not a liquor license attorney. Let's make sure that maybe you're uncomfortable with something that you have to become comfortable with. Maybe you're uncomfortable with something that that you can enforce that lack of comfort.
Well, it used to be many years ago, having been the town attorney in Southampton, that people with liquor license would come to you, and I would be told by members of the SLA, you tell them where they can eat, you tell them what you can do, but the SLA was very stringent about this. We're going to tell them where they can drink. And it got municipalities got very, very concerned about it, which is why Fred Deal, as a legislator, put in the law some teeth about compliance with local zoning laws.
And
okay?
that's what we're here to do.
I understand, but I'm telling you right now that if my zoning agreement with you is satisfactory in terms of the limitations of the use, I think you should be happy with that.
Let's not get to that point down the road until we've gotten that far down.
Sounds good to me.
Good enough? Okay.
Sam, for the board, I want to just mention that when we discussed this bigger issue in the past, the fire inspector was very concerned that he had to try to go and enforce uses in Montauk where the SLA had issued bar permits or occupancy permits that were much bigger than what we allowed. They were not consistent. And
I certificate of occupancy on those buildings, though.
This is exactly.
No, but
We don't want to.
wait a minute. Let me just finish the thought. I thought that all applications to the SLA were also going to be routed to the town attorney.
They were.
They are.
So was this one?
Yes.
Oh, so you guys signed off?
Both applicants. No, we didn't sign off. There's basically a form response that David McMaster in our office saying that at this point, not that the town objects, but it is before the planning board.
So that's essentially a reservation of rights.
Right.
Okay.
Right, don't you agree that's our standard?
We should probably get that.
Yes, definitely.
Don't you think we should get that routed to us?
Well, I'm comfortable with it going to our town attorney because it's a legal issue.
Just be.
But maybe we should go to the plan.
But we should know.
What we now have
Tina
is
should get it.
Listen, I got to be very, 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 very clear about this, and my apologies. But I'm going to confirm it. I'm offering to work out the terms of this in your conditions and your covenants, okay? But I am incredibly uncomfortable with somebody interfacing with the state liquor authority where I already have vested a right.
Okay.
You know,
well, let's look. The answer.
And this is not me saying I don't think I can do whatever the hell that license says because I've committed to you to limit it in terms of your conditions.
And so what I'm saying to you is I'm the one who used the words CNR, covenants and restrictions. That may not be what ultimately this board decides is the thing to do. And I don't know where it's going to go. And you and I are not going to have a conversation now about whether it's CNRs or something involving the liquor authority.
Yeah,
I don't know. We're unfortunately all unaware of the law. All right, you don't know it, I don't know it.
Well, I know enough to know that there's a preemption issue there.
Maybe there is, maybe you.
I just think this might be an issue if we have legal authority, and I'm just putting that out there now because I don't want to kick the can down the road.
And I don't.
I appreciate that. I appreciate all of it.
There's a document here that he says that if we have mutually agreed stipulations, those can become part of the license.
Yeah,
if that's legally true,
that's it.
I might take a harder line than you want.
I know that's in their hand.
But the conditional license have already been issued. What I'm saying is I've got that. I'm here in good faith to work this stuff out. I don't quite understand why you'd have to go back to the SLA.
Because the answer is because maybe we can and maybe we need to.
But I caution, and you should speak to your town attorney, I have a vested right in that, and I caution anyone mucking with that. I'm very concerned about that.
I understand that. Let's see, okay, because really, Mr. Bennett, you and I.
It's the only thing I've really been firm on.
Well, I understand, but understand from our point of view, We don't know.
Your jurisdiction is whatever it is. I just.
Right, our jurisdiction, that's a good way to put it. It is whatever it is, and we'll find out what it is.
All right.
Okay, all right, with that, we're gonna go into the regular meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Randy, you've got two of these. You've got,
Can you officially say that we can go there?
oh, shoot.
Yeah,
Oh,
number one.
And the
you
questions
know what,
that are
you
at
know
the
what,
end.
you know, you see, I'm so anxious.
Number one. And number two,
I'm
a little bit
question. I didn't do the question.
no, I'm a little bit, I'm just a little bit concerned about this. I'm hearing the public is concerned, everything. You know, just a little bit of a due process issue going on here. No one's telling me who these people are, what their standing is, where they're concerned. Why don't you have a public hearing?
You know what, we'll have a public, we will, down the road, there will be.
I know you're gonna have a public hearing. But
I know you're, listen.
When I said, I'm trying to accelerate it. Yeah.
Let me say this, okay? This applicant, like every other applicant,
Right.
is anxious to get to a public hearing.
Mhm.
We understand that.
Is there
First, we're
anything?
going to
what
answer
would-
these questions.
Okay, all right, very good.
Should the applicant seek the input of the ARB regarding the new ADA ramp?
Yes.
Should the applicant?
And everything else you have in your
Yeah.
plan.
Should the
coloring, you know.
facade and all that other?
An application has been submitted.
Thank you very much.
You're gonna get this in a letter from the board. Should the applicant provide the planning board with the SLA permit documentation to fully inform how that entity classifies and regulates a site such as this, and you committed to that? Thank you. Does the board wish to consider potential conditions as covenants that would restrict the nature and number of, for example, number of patrons, locations, hours, et cetera, of the on-premises consumption, and should these start to be developed? And I think the answer is yes to that one. Should the applicant provide additional information on the width of navigation aisles and endeavor to comply with the town code? I think you've done that, or you're in the process of doing that?
We can provide some of that stuff. I guess my question about that is for navigation, some of the navigation aisles that already exist, such as the one that's between the revegetation area and the building, that may be only like 12 feet wide. We wouldn't want to make that wider. So all you're asking now is for us to provide the aisle widths, make sure that there's enough space for us to back out of the parking spaces in the back and that kind of stuff. Just provide the information and we can talk about it.
And
right?
truck,
Okay.
any truck.
We're talking about
unloading,
information now.
Right.
Wherever you intend to get it.
Let me run through this. Should the applicant confirm confirm the Suffolk County Department of Health Services accepts the new use as a dry store to confirm the accuracy of the sanitary calculations presented?
Yeah, I've got a problem with that. I'll tell you right now. You look at the Suffolk County Health Department regulations, and they tell you what the wastewater generation, what the flow rates are for given uses. The flow rate for a dry storage is the same as flow rate for dry retail. I shouldn't have to prove more than what the Suffolk County Health Department regulations say.
I don't think we're asking you to.
With the on-premise consumption, the comment is meant to confirm that they consider it dry retail because it seems.
I'm not gonna go to the health department when I don't have to.
You have to go to the health department for approval of the system.
I'm not gonna go to health. Listen, I've gone very far. I've said, everybody knows that the current wastewater system on this property complies. I'm now going to try, God willing, we'll get some grant money with it, to put an IA system there. If you look, I know what the flow rates are for a retail store of this size, and I know what the flow rates are for dry storage, which is the same as for retail. I'm not gonna go to the health department and ask them to explain their law to me.
Are they on the plan?
The flow rates?
The calculated flow rate.
Yes.
So
If they considered it a bar, your flow rate would be higher by substantial.
It's not a
amount.
bar.
That's not right. If
Well,
they
the issue is, the question is whether or not.
where do the people pay is the question.
Yeah.
They generally allow 16 seats at retail stores. Beyond that, they have a problem.
That's right, that's right.
Right, but if there's a lot of people standing, it's a fair question, and
No, it's not a fair question, because I'm not gonna go to the health department and ask them, I'm not gonna go to the health department and ask them to say something other than what their code says, which is there's a flow rate for the retail store and there's a flow rate for the.
Why do you have an objection to the Suffolk County Department of Health Services saying that the new use is a dry store?
I don't have another year and a half to try to get some engineer at the health department Department tell me something that I already know, which is what the flow rate is for the retail store, the wine store, which is the same as dry storage, and what the flow rate is for the general store. You're mixing apples and oranges.
His concern is
It's not in
timing.
the code.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah, but there is an issue with consumption of wine on premises and the use of the facilities in the general store. That's going to increase the
But that's
flow.
not the new, but that's not the
the health
new
department
use.
regulations don't deal with that.
That's not
And I'm
the
not
new
gonna
use.
create some
We're talking about the new use.
regulation.
We're not talking about the existing store. We're talking about the new use. Now, the new use is the wine shop. The wine shop, I mean, it's gonna take you 14 months to get somebody at Southern County to tell you that a wine shop is a
You're
dry
asking me to
store.
get an advisory opinion from the health
It's not
department.
an advisory opinion, look, this is all about making sure that the sanitary calculations are accurate.
The health, we'll show them to the town engineer, we'll show them to the, whoever you want, but I'm not gonna go to the health department and ask them to qualify something that exists in their law.
So I would
I'm not gonna
say
make an
that-
application to the health department. I don't have to.
How are they going to
Let
decide?
me see what.
You are gonna need the approval of the health department for the sanitary system. That's always a condition of the planning board's approval.
Understand something, I don't
So,
need the approval of the health department for a sanitary system. I am offering it as a result of the request of this board members. And I think it's a little perverse for someone now to suggest that no good deed goes unpunished. There is a flow rate for a retail store in the health department regulations. And it's the
saying that there's a
same,
danger we wouldn't get
exact
that.
same as dry storage. There's a flow rate for the general store. That's not changing.
No, it's the new use.
But Tina, are we just saying that the new use is not a wet use, it's dry use, period?
and just to confirm that the health department.
That's the only question that's
I'm not
being
doing
asked
that.
here.
Gentlemen, I'm not doing that. You can't make me do that. You can't make me do that. You can't make me go ask another agency that I comply with their existing conditions of to make you feel comfortable that I comply with their conditions, because it's
No, it's
no.
actually to make
John,
us feel comfortable
I'm
that
sorry to
the
interrupt you, but
sanitary calculations are accurate.
if we don't, they will.
Who?
I mean, they can just ask the general, they being.
Here, the issue
planning
is-
department. John, I'm sorry. The planning department could just ask a general question about it.
General question about what?
About whether,
A theoretical wine shop is a dry use.
So that's all that's being asked.
It was the on-site consumption that's the problem.
Listen to me.
But that's
If
not
you
the
look at this, at the flow rates for a retail store, it's the same as the flow rate for dry storage, which is why, and the flow rate for the existing Sagaponic General Store is the same as what it's gonna be there, because we're not adding 1 square foot, okay? Which is why.
That's not, the question doesn't have anything to do with the existing store. It has to do with the new use.
There is no new use in the store.
No, I know. I'm talking about the wine shop, right? Tina, am I talking
So
about the
this is what
wine
I'm gonna
shop?
do. We will give you the literature that shows in the regulations of the Suffolk County Health Department how you calculate the flow rate from a 1,700 square foot
All right, well,
retail
I'll
store.
tell you what.
The potentially relevant factor
think
is
you're getting-
on-site consumption.
Exactly. I was just gonna say.
Because the health department doesn't anticipate, maybe, a retail store having people hanging out drinking.
You're now making up your own health department regulations.
No, I'm advocating for one.
Stop. Tina, I want to, does this have to do with the new shed? This
This has to
question?
do with the new use only.
New use.
Confirming
Does
that
that
because
mean the
there's
shed-
on-site consumption, that's the shed.
Does that mean the shed?
Yes,
It doesn't mean the existing store, the existing Springs General Store, correct?
correct.
It's only the shed.
All right, so I'll give you how you calculate 170, the wastewater flow, the flow rate for
But
172.
will that definition
The shed is 1,700
reflective
feet?
of?
175.
172,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
okay.
It's 172.
I was about to say that things are different.
But will that Suffolk County definition of the dry goods store, being the wine shop, take into consideration that that wine can be consumed on premises? Basically,
It
that's what's
doesn't
gonna happen.
matter. That's the classification that the health department gives it. You're trying to create a new classification, and gentlemen, I'm just not gonna let you have it.
I'm gonna give you the answer right now. Tina, Tina, make the contact, find out.
Yeah, okay.
That's it. You don't have to answer. You don't have to do it. Will do.
Sam, it also comes up in the design, if we go to an IA,
We're going to find
their
out.
health department is going to review it and they're going to design it for what they think is the flow on site. And that's going to include on-site consumption of alcohol.
Well, but that's not,
Anyway.
All right, let's just move on.
Again, it's not
I
confirming
know, but I'm just-
accuracy,
we're good,
not
we're good, we're gonna move on. Should the applicant address town engineer standards regarding stormwater and drainage and demonstrate compliance with town standards?
Yes.
Should the applicant provide information on interior renovations now planned due to the damage that occurred to the building and seek ARB input on the exterior changes proposed?
Yes.
Yes. Floor plan's already in the record.
I found the floor
Okay,
plan, sorry,
great.
I didn't see
That's
that.
fine, that's fine.
Does the planning board agree that the generator is not appropriate for a setback waiver, and should it be moved to a location more internal to the site?
Can I have some discussion on that, please?
Go
I may, because I didn't get.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
This is a very, very large generator, but it's a generator that was installed after Sandy. I have it has been in operation for a total of 90 hours. It comes on as all these generators do, just to make sure the thing works, okay? We want to get this large generator, which we think is very, very helpful. If the power goes down, there's freezers and stuff like that, but we want to move it away from where it is centrally located because it's unattractive. So what I'd like to do is see if maybe we can shift the orientation of it to maybe get it not to the 30 feet, but a little bit further away from that.
So it's mainly a noise thing, so if you can put it in a.
If we're going to attenuate the noise, and if we can maybe find a place between 15 and 30, but also attenuate the noise is the big thing. So if we can prove to you that we attenuate the noise, then that's,
and it's
makes you happy.
And it's diesel, by the way.
So you know what, I think what we need to do is we said the wrong word. I think that we need to table this one question pending further information from the applicant. What do you think, Tina?
So they're gonna provide noise analysis?
Basically, what I'm saying is I don't want this board to make a determination about it
Not right now.
right now, if they're gonna be moving, if where they want to move it, or what kind of noise attenuation they might want to undertake.
And fuel storage
And
too.
fuel storage
We
too.
got to see the
Yeah.
diesel.
There's eventually going to be frustration though if we keep stringing along. I believe
Well,
that you
there's
should meet
so many
setbacks
other
and
things that
noise.
they have to do.
Let me give you some numbers.
No, it's always, listen, getting us to waive setbacks is not, something we.
Well, my feeling now is you should meet setbacks and noise requirements.
What's the issue with the diesel?
It's a hazardous material that leaches into the ground. Propane is not a hazardous material.
Okay, we'll have to talk to the governor of the state about what's the preferred.
If you use propane, you're in the clear.
Yeah, no, it's an existing diesel.
Yeah, right.
I want to wrap this up.
And it'll be stored above ground and it doesn't leach away.
Mr. Bennett, please.
Okay.
Should the applicant specify the generator, fuel type, and location?
Yep, well,
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And the lighting plan, yes.
86, that last idea about, I'm going back a question. Does the planning board agree the generator is not appropriate for a setback waiver and should be moved to a location more internal to the site?
Yes.
And noise attenuation.
Well, that's-
I thought you were going to consider if we did something more than what's there, but not quite the 30. Because
I'm going to tell you the truth.
The best you can do.
If you're moving it closer to a neighbor's house because it's ugly and you don't meet setbacks, I think it's
It's
a
not because it's
problem.
ugly, it's because it's right in it's very, go there and look at it.
If we come back with potential, right now we're proposing to use the generator that's on site right now and just move it. We have spoken with our clients, and it's possible that they could get a new one that would be smaller and quieter. And right. So if that was the case, then would you consider the waiver?
Before you say that.
Can we put together because I'm thinking about the letter.
Right.
Can we put together something that will address this board's concern and give the applicant the flexibility to move the generator
You can
and
ultimately
come
say
back to
no.
us.
Yeah, how can we say it? I'm saying the starting point, I think, is you meet setbacks and noise.
Mm-hmm.
If you have another proposal, fine, but don't be surprised if we say,
If you say no,
I hear you,
of
I hear
course.
you, I hear you, I hear you.
because you're gonna be mad if it goes next meeting.
You can write that.
I just
Tina,
want,
you can
I want
write that.
I want the
Yes.
ability to
Thank
fight
you,
it
Chair.
another
All right,
day,
we're
but
good.
ultimately it's up to you.
Great.
Folks, we have
Okay,
last
site lighting.
question.
Yes.
And if I hear a no, I'm gonna, should the site lighting plan be submitted if new lighting is proposed?
Yeah.
Again, thank you very much. We know that it's, look, I said it last time, this is an extremely important application, and there's a reason that we take an hour and a half with it.
I understand, I appreciate
Lots of
May I ask a
progress.
procedural question, just because I'm curious about it? So,
Tomorrow,
what?
tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Tomorrow we can have the public hearing? Oh, no, sorry. So,
Now, public hearing is usually when we're pretty well on its way.
when it's
It
pretty
has to
well
be-
on its way,
yeah,
okay.
I mean,
I only ask because every municipality does it differently, so that about when a public hearing is held and then when the
when the application is
negotiation and
complete,
discussion
here is when its
happens.
Application's complete.
Okay.
You understand, I
So-
have to say this, the application, for the purposes of meeting the code requirements, in my opinion, is complete. But I know what you guys say all the time. I have to say it.
We disagree.
So the discussion about the CNRs and all of the details of the CNRs, you want that worked out before we even have a public hearing to hear what the
Details of
public has to say
CNR,
about
no.
it?
The general makeup of the CNR.
I mean,
The general makeup,
word
okay.
for word,
General.
word for word, they can't, because
Right.
what happens is the public comes in and somebody says, what are you guys, crazy?
Well, I know, but we want a starting point so
But
the
we
public
need
can
We want a starting point, of course,
Somebody
right.
comments
Let me
on
tell
it.
you something.
Right, it's why I'm asking is because
don't
I
at
want to make
least
sure that
have-
I.
It'll be
A draft.
like contingent on a
If you
CNR.
don't,
Right.
if you don't at least have a sense, or I should say the public, doesn't at least have a sense of where we're going with these CNRs, you're gonna have a very bad public hearing.
Right.
All right, from your point of view.
Right.
Okay? You don't want that.
Right.
So, all right?
Right. Is that potentially just a list of the restrictions or whatever that were?
The answer to that is, let's see what went back and forth with the SL.
Thank you. I'm sorry. It's taken a very long time for us to get to this point, so I just wanted to ask the
I
question.
think we have a boilerplate CNR,
Yeah.
don't we?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't you start with that?
Well, yeah, but
And also, the other thing that you're doing is you're going to explain to us the whole SLA
Of course.
license structure, how you interpret it, and please explain to us why you have an off-premises license that can be consumed on premises.
It's
not.
It's
No, no,
all
no,
right.
Not now, please,
Good night.
Thank you very much for your time.
God, thank you.
Can't go on around 10.
No, we're not. All right, Randy,
Who's off premises?
you're on premises, you're on.
It's like, who's on first?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, all right, that's what we're here for. 219, 221 Pentagon.
Right.
Got it?
That's perfect.
Okay, the matter of the application 219, 221 Pinnacle Road, site plan, special permit approval. It's the site plan approval, issuance of a special permit, tax map, SCTM 300, 188, 111, and 13.1, commonly known as Carissa's Restaurant. It's in the language here.
Okay.
So this is an approval. I've read the resolution. I move for its adoption.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Yes, 7-0. Oh, I'm sorry, 6-0, 1 recused. Thank you. Next one, I think, is Sylvan, Randy, is that yours?
That's the one. That's the one.
Okay, I'm sorry, okay.
All right, in the matter of the application of Sylvan Realty LLC, tax map number 300-161-4-9. For a site plan special permit approval. I have read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Second, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0.
I know, I'll vote against that.
Oh,
Just to keep, yeah.
you actually had an issue with this one.
I just think they should have met the parking
All
requirements.
right, so you want to vote against it?
Yeah.
6-1. Okay, and finally, Montauk Sunset. That's yours.
Okay, that one, I'm not gonna vote for that one.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, you want me to read it?
Do you not want to read it in on that
No, I'll
basis?
read it in.
Okay, go ahead.
The matter of the application of site plan special permit approval for Montauk Sunset Cottages LLC, site plan special permit, Suffolk County Tax Map 320-2-13.1, 13.2. This is a approval, and I've read.
See, I don't know how you do this.
Yeah.
Well, because we don't have him read it. I
Yeah,
think somebody else read it.
that's where we were going.
He read it and he.
No, because he's making the motion. He's going to vote against it. Whoever's going to read it presumably is moving to.
I have read that resolution that Randy introduced, and I move for its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed
That's it.
because I think it's a intensification of the use.
6-1. Okay. All right, folks, we have a meeting in 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks? In 3 weeks?
Next week.
No, hell no.
Next
We
week.
don't have a meeting next week. No.
Artist Studio is scheduled.
We did it. We did it.
Oh, we did.
No.
Calendar I have.
It's on the calendar.
No, that's an old calendar. There's no meeting
After she
next
was
week.
here, we read it in.
There's no meeting next week.
Short-term
There's a
memory.
meeting in 2 weeks.
This counts as 2
We
meetings.
told her it was complete, we read it in.
Okay.
There you go.
I don't,
You're right.
And more important, let's adjourn, and then I'll tell you the more
I have a
important
paper
reason.
agenda, and I'm sure it's all correct.
All right, can I get a
It's
motion?
in front of you right now.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?